Chapter 325. And Xiuxian's sudden appearance made Charlotte think of two possibilities. The first possibility was that his and Qin Xiang's actions had left some clues, and Xiuxian had brought people to catch them. The second possibility was that his and Qin Xiang's actions didn't leave any clues that could be traced, and Xiuxian had brought people to take advantage of this matter to mess with him. In order to get Shen to Tianyin and to regain the face that he had lost tonight, Xiuxian might do this. This was South Korea, his home ground, and he didn't have to be afraid like he was in China. In fact, as one of Shen to Tianyin's pursuers, Xiuxian didn't dare to go against Gu Kewu in China because of this reason. That was China, Gu Kewu's home ground, and he had too many restrictions. But here, he had almost no restrictions. Apart from these two possibilities, Charlotte couldn't think of any other possibilities. However, no matter which one it was a big trouble for him. Just as Charlotte was analyzing the matter in his heart, Xiuxian came over and sneered, "Mr. Xia, you're really in a good mood. You're still in the mood to drink tea with Tianyin at this time." Charlotte smiled. "Did what happened in your house alarm the South Korean president, and now he's implementing a curfew? Who I drink coffee with, is it any of your business?" Shintu Tianyin nudged Charlotte's toes under the table, hinting him not to provoke Xiuxian. She had already smelled trouble from the uniformed policeman. However, Charlotte's sarcasm had angered Xiuxian. He slapped the coffee table and said angrily, "Charlotte, I suspect that you stole my family's antiques, which are worth 2 billion yuan. You have to come with us." Charlotte put away the smile on his face and his voice turned cold. "You'd better watch your words. You said that I stole your antiques, but do you have evidence? A witness or evidence?" "Evidence? You want evidence?" Xiuxian was furious. "I'll give you evidence." A person stood out from Xiuxian's entourage. It was the family's housekeeper, Cui Minghu. He sneered, "I saw you enter our chairman's study room and steal the antique." This was the evidence of Xiuxian. Even if there was no evidence, he could create evidence at will. This was obviously a frame-up, but Charlotte was relieved, because Cui Minghu jumped out to testify, which meant that the police and family didn't find anything. The second possibility was that Xiuxian was using this opportunity to mess with him. "I see." Charlotte stood up. "You want to frame me, don't you?" Xiuxian said, "Whether or not they framed you, you can go and tell the police and the prosecutor, but you have to come with me now." Charlotte took out his phone. "I'll call our consulate right away." Without waiting for Charlotte to dial, Xiuxian gave him a look, and a policeman rushed up and shouted in Korean, "Put down your phone, otherwise I'll shoot." The policeman drew his gun very quickly. Before Charlotte dialed the first number, the gun in his hand was already pointed at Charlotte's head. Charlotte put down his phone, and his eyes quickly swept across the cafe. In 2 or 3 seconds, the passageways on the left and right, as well as the people in the cafe, came into his sight one by one. From the number of people in the cafe to the expressions on everyone's faces, which direction they were looking at, and so on, everything was like a static 3D picture in his brain, clear and clear. Not only did his brain present such a static 3D picture, but it was also analyzing the best route to escape. Moreover, this was not the kind of analysis that could be done just by thinking about it, but an analysis that was so detailed that it was terrifying. For example, he could slap away the pistol of the policeman holding the gun, and then rush out from his side, pushing a woman standing at the next table to his pursuers. After 3 steps, he could grab the coffee pot on the other coffee table that was still steaming and throw it at Xiuxian. These scenes automatically rehearsed in Charlotte's brain, and in the blink of an eye, he sorted out the best escape route for him. And he was also surprised to find that when he was in danger and his mind was highly focused, his brain's computing power would be greatly improved. Coupled with his left eye, it was simply an incredible existence. Did the left eye or the AE capsule affect his brain? This question had been bothering Charlotte. He had always had this speculation and analysis, but there was no result. But this time, his brain suddenly displayed an amazing computing and analytical ability. This was no longer a speculation, but a sign. "Put your hands up!" The policeman holding the gun shouted at Charlotte. Charlotte looked away, and his expression was calm. Shintu Tianyin couldn't hold it in any longer. She grabbed the coffee cup on the table and smashed it on the ground. She said angrily, "And Xiuxian, that's enough." Tianyin. And Xiuxian had obviously never seen Shintu Tianyin so angry before, and his heart suddenly felt a little guilty. "Charlotte is my friend, and also the benefactor of my Shintu family. If you treat him like this, where do you put me?" Shintu Tianyin lost control of her emotions. She raised her hand and pointed at Xiuxian's nose. "I'm giving you two choices now. One is that you take the people and leave, and I'll pretend that nothing happened. Two is that you take Charlotte away, and I'll immediately withdraw my investment. Our cooperation project will immediately be interrupted." And Xiuxian was stunned on the spot. After a while, he said, "Tianyin, you actually, for such a thief, you actually want to interrupt the cooperation project between our two families? That's $1 billion project, have you thought about it clearly?" Shintu Tianyin said coldly, "You know my character, and I won't change my decision. Two choices, 1 minute to think about it." "I'll wait for you for a minute." At this moment, Shintu Tianyin was like a real queen of a country. Her aura was so strong that no one could compare to her. Charlotte couldn't help but look at her, and his heart was filled with complicated feelings. Regardless of his and Shintu Tianyin's views and even positions, she was willing to lose $1 billion international project for him, which was enough to move him. "Tianyin, calm down, I have evidence." And Xiuxian didn't give up. "I said, 1 minute. Shintu Tianyin said, "Mingmei, start the timer." Fu Mingmei then raised her wrist and stared at the watch on Hao's wrist. 1 minute, without giving anyone any room for discussion, and without leaving any room for negotiation. This was Shintu Tianyin's dominance. At this moment, Xiuxian looked in a direction in the coffee shop. What does he want to see at this moment? Charlotte's heart skipped a beat, and he also looked in that direction with the corner of his left eye. In the corner of the coffee shop sat an old man with a half-bald head, and the remaining blonde hair was like a hat without a top on his head. He had an expressionless face, deep eye sockets, and a pair of rimless glasses on the bridge of his nose. His eyes shone through the lenses, and it was hard to hide his gloominess. This old man was ordinary, and he even looked a little thin, but he gave off a very dangerous feeling as he sat there. Who was this old man? Charlotte was no longer satisfied with peeping at the old man with the corner of his left eye. He slightly adjusted the direction of his eyes and looked directly at the old man. His left eye twitched slightly, and he saw everything about the old man. The old man had a gun, a communicator, and a mini receiver in his ear. What was even more strange was that the hair on his head was actually a wig, and even his baldness was fake. Then, Charlotte used his X-ray vision to see the old man's ID. He was from the CIA. Goodson. At this moment, Charlotte understood that Xiuxian wasn't just here to cause trouble for him, and the so-called framing was also fake. Everything that was happening in front of him was being manipulated by the CIA behind the scenes. The situation that Charlotte was most worried about had happened, but he didn't expect the CIA to come so quickly, and even involve Jin Jian and Xiuxian. Now that the CIA was involved, it didn't matter whether Xiuxian had any evidence or not. Even the missing sword of Attila could be ignored, because the CIA's target was him. Just as Charlotte used his left eye to see through Goodson's X-ray vision, Goodson nodded slightly. It seemed to be a secret signal. And Xiuxian then said, "Tianyin, I'm really sorry. Korea is a country governed by law, and anyone who breaks the law has to pay the price. Although Charlotte is your friend, he has to go back with the police to assist in the investigation. You are a reasonable person, and I believe you will understand me. Looks like you've made your decision. Alright, I've also made my decision. The collaboration project between the Wanxiang Group and the Divine Domain Group is cancelled. Shintu Tianin's expression was very ugly. No one had ever rejected her like this, but Xiaoxian had. Charlotte knew the truth behind this matter. If the CIA hadn't gotten involved, Xiaoxian would most likely have compromised and found another opportunity to frame him. In that case, not only would he have given face to Shintu Tianin, but he would also have been able to recover the Divine Domain Group's losses. But now that the CIA was involved, the CIA wouldn't care about a billion-dollar project. Japan and Korea were practically vassal states of the US, and they were like puppets. The CIA definitely had extremely high authority in Korea, including the use of police force, weapons, and intelligence assistance. In other words, Charlotte's current situation was actually more dangerous than in Afghanistan, because in Afghanistan, he at least had the sniper rifle that he had personally modified, Tang Yuyen, and the agents of 101 innings. But here, he had nothing. Take him away. And Xiaoxian said. Another police officer removed the handcuffs from his belt and went forward to handcuff Charlotte. Lei, I'll call our consulate right now. Shintu Tianin took out his phone. What are you doing? A police officer followed up and snatched the phone from Shintu Tianin's hand. Fu Mingmei was instantly enraged and wanted to hit the police officer. However, Charlotte blocked her. It's none of your business. Leave here and go back to your country. You. Shintu Tianin didn't expect Charlotte to say that, and her heart felt as if it had been pierced by a needle. Sister Tianin, he doesn't appreciate it at all. Fu Mingmei was also angry. If he wants us to leave, we'll leave. He's Sun Wukong, and he's very capable. He'll fly back himself, and we don't have to worry about him. Go. Stop talking nonsense, Charlotte roared. His face was cold, and he didn't give them any face at all. Shintu Tianin and Fu Mingmei looked at each other, then turned and left. They didn't know what trouble Charlotte had encountered, and they didn't even know who Charlotte's enemy was. Charlotte fiercely told them to leave, but he was actually protecting them. Because once she fell into the hands of the CIA, even if she was Shintu Tianin, they wouldn't give her any face. If she interfered with the CIA's operation, even God wouldn't be able to save her. Shintu Tianin and Fu Mingmei really left the cafe. And Xiaoxian smiled. This time, it wasn't a sneer, but a genuine smile from the bottom of her heart. She smiled happily. You're really tactful. Charlotte also smiled. I've always been tactful. Chapter 326. Just as Charlotte and Xiaoxian were talking, a few extremely burly black and white men appeared at the doors on both sides of the cafe. Without using X-ray vision, Charlotte knew that these people were from the CIB and that he was surrounded. He knew very well that he couldn't even count on 101 innings at this time. Even if Long Bing and Tang Buchuan were here, it wouldn't help. He could only rely on himself. Charlotte's left eye was observing, and his brain was analyzing and calculating. Charlotte, you're finished, and Xiaoxian said with a smile. But you did a great job driving Shintu Tianin away. In her eyes, you've become an unreasonable person, and I will replace you and take care of her for the rest of your life, ha ha. Charlotte turned a deaf ear to such humiliating words. His gaze moved to Goodson. The CIB had surrounded the cafe, and Goodson looked very relaxed. He didn't avoid Charlotte's gaze at all and looked back at Charlotte. There was a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Charlotte's gaze quickly swept across the cafe again, including the doors on both sides. Unfortunately, he didn't see Liang Xiao. Give me your hand. The police officer holding the handcuffs said fiercely to Charlotte. Charlotte extended his hand, but he didn't cooperate with the police officer who was about to handcuff him. Instead, he suddenly grabbed the hand of the police officer who was pointing a gun at his head. As soon as he grabbed it, he pulled hard, and the armed policeman crashed into his arms with both of them. And Xiaoxian roared, "Don't you dare!" Charlotte raised his leg and kicked between Xiaoxian's legs. And Xiaoxian suddenly knelt on the ground. Her mouth was wide open, but she couldn't make a sound. The sudden change immediately agitated the CIB surrounding the cafe, and no less than 10 CIB officers rushed into the cafe. But the first to react were the police officers standing next to Xiaoxian. They pulled out their guns and roared. In an instant the scene became chaotic. Bang bang! 2 gunshots rang out. The tempered glass of the floor-to-ceiling window shattered. The customers and waiters in the cafe screamed. Some ran away and some lay on the ground. Catch him! Goodson suddenly realized what Charlotte wanted to do and panicked. Bang bang bang! A black man opened fire decisively. He fired 3 shots in an instant, but all 3 bullets hit the police officer who was being held hostage by Charlotte. The 3 bullets hit the policeman's chest, abdomen, and thigh. Because he was wearing a bulletproof vest, no blood spurted out of his chest and abdomen, but blood spurted out of his thigh. The policeman who was shot also cried out in pain. At that moment, Charlotte suddenly pushed the officer who had been shot forward. While the officer was blocking his front, he turned around and jumped out of the floor-to-ceiling window that had no glass. This was the 5th floor, with a vertical height of about 20 meters. From such a height, even a rabbit would break all the bones in its body, let alone a human. But at such a height, Charlotte jumped down without hesitation. The moment his body flew out of the floor-to-ceiling window, Charlotte's right foot kicked the windowsill. Under the effect of the rebound, his body suddenly plunged to the left. When the rebound was about to disappear, he suddenly reached out and hugged the drainage pipe that extended from the roof to the ground. The drainage pipe shook and almost fell off the wall. Charlotte's hands loosened, and his body suddenly fell. In the blink of an eye, he slid down to the next floor. When he was about to touch the fastener that fixed the drainage pipe to the wall, he grabbed the fastener with both hands, stepped over the fastener, and then let go again. This series of actions was complicated and thrilling, but it only took 2 or 3 seconds. This escape route was a route that Charlotte's left eye and brain had analyzed and evolved. His left eye saw through the drainage pipe next to the floor-to-ceiling window, and his brain analyzed what to do and the possibilities. And he did the same. Although it was a great risk, he had no other choice. In the blink of an eye, Charlotte slid down to the 3rd floor. The black gunman and the 2 armed policemen stuck their heads out of the broken floor-to-ceiling window at almost the same time and aimed at him. Charlotte's legs kicked the wall, and his body suddenly shot out of the drainage pipe. Bang bang bang, a few bullets hit the drainage pipe and the wall. The plastic drainage pipe was shattered, and sparks flew from the wall. Boom! Charlotte's body smashed into a Hyundai parked downstairs. The roof of the car immediately caved in, and his internal organs and brain suffered a violent shock. It felt like the organs in his body were about to burst out of his body, and it was very uncomfortable. The black gunman and the 2 policemen by the floor-to-ceiling window on the 5th floor adjusted their direction and fired again. Charlotte rolled down from the roof, and a few bullets hit and penetrated the roof. Goodson also stuck his head out of the broken floor-to-ceiling window, but he only saw the back of Charlotte running. "A bunch of trash! Chase after him!" Goodson roared. "No matter what, we have to catch him in Korea." The traffic on the road was heavy, and the streets were filled with people. The prosperity of the Gangnam district was like a dream. To find and catch Charlotte in such an environment was no different from finding a needle in the sea. Not to mention anything else, just the vision of his left eye, which could cover a range of more than 4,000 meters, made it very difficult for people to catch him to even get close to him. After entering a mall and exiting from another mall, Charlotte had changed into a set of casual clothes. He wore a black jacket, blue jeans, and a pair of New Balance sneakers. He also wore a baseball cap on his head. He pulled the brim of the cap very low, so that people couldn't see his face clearly. The baseball cap also allowed him to avoid the surveillance cameras on the streets and in the stores. When he left the mall, Charlotte removed his phone and threw it into a trash can. On the street, a Korean youth with dyed blonde hair was playing with his phone. Charlotte walked over to him, patted him on the shoulder, and said in Korean, "Hey, do you want to get rich?" The blonde youth looked up at Charlotte. In the end, the main character in the game had been killed. He immediately frowned. This was a curse. It said, "Bastard, do you want to die?" Charlotte wasn't angry at all. He took out his wallet and took out a stack of 50,000 Korean won. It was brand new Korean won worth about 1 million. He waved the Korean won at the blonde youth and said with a smile, "Use this money to buy your phone. Are you crazy?" The Korean youth looked at Charlotte in a daze. Charlotte said, "Are you selling it or not? If not, I'll find someone else to buy it from." "Sell it, but give me the money first." The Korean youth was very cautious, afraid that Charlotte would cheat him of his phone. His phone was actually a Samsung smartphone, a very cheap type. The money that Charlotte gave him was enough to buy more than a dozen of such phones. Charlotte handed the money to the Korean youth. The youth took the money and checked whether it was real. After confirming that it was real money, he handed the phone to Charlotte. However, after Charlotte took the phone, he turned around and ran away. He was afraid that Charlotte would go back on his words and ask for the money back. Charlotte took the phone and mixed into the crowd. As he walked, he dialed Long Bing's number. "Where are you?" Long Bing's voice was very anxious. "I can't get through to you. Our people found people from the CIA in the hotel. I'm on the street. It's safe for the time being." Charlotte said as he walked, "I want to leave Korea. Arrange it for me." "You can't go to Incheon Airport. Go by water." "Where are you now?" "I'll pick you up right away." It was Long Bing's voice. Charlotte looked at the street sign and said, "I'm on the street next to Bonjen Temple. It's safe there. I'll be there right away." Long Bing hung up. Charlotte put away the phone and observed the situation on the street. A police car came roaring. Charlotte lowered his head and walked forward. The police car drove through the street and didn't stop. Even so, Charlotte still felt very nervous. If he was discovered at this time, it was bound to lead to a new round of pursuit. The police car drove out of the street in a blink of an eye, but there was also a shrill siren coming from another street. At this time, it was unknown how many police officers and agents from the Korean Intelligence Department were involved in the operation to arrest him. In a foreign country, unfamiliar streets, whistling sirens, cold guns, and who knew how many plainclothes agents were mixed in the crowd. All of this brought great pressure to Charlotte and made him angry. "I'm not a criminal, but they are so unscrupulous in arresting me. Why? In Afghanistan, they ambushed me, indiscriminately killed the agents of 101 innings, and fired rockets at the White Hun tribe. Who gave them the right to do that? Well, one day I'll make them pay." A ball of anger ignited in Charlotte's heart. There were laws in this world, but even in the United States, which claimed to have the most perfect laws, there were people and organizations that ignored the law and even went above the law. The CIA and AE Research Center were obviously one of them. To fight against such an organization, Charlotte was still too weak. But in his heart, a seed of revenge had been planted. Ring ring ring, ring ring ring, his phone suddenly rang. Charlotte hurriedly took out the phone. The screen didn't show Long Bing's number, but a local number in Korea. Charlotte hesitated for a moment and finally hung up. This was someone else's phone. The person who picked up the phone might be a friend of the Korean youth, who sold him the phone. There was no need to pick up such a call. Ring ring ring, ring ring ring. The phone suddenly rang again, and it was the same number. Charlotte hung up again. Ring ring ring, ring ring ring. The phone rang for the third time, and it was the same number. Charlotte suddenly felt a little strange. He answered the phone, and then he heard a woman's anxious voice. "Lay, get out of there." Charlotte's body suddenly froze. Although it was an unfamiliar Korean number, and he couldn't see the woman's face. He was very familiar with the voice. It was Liang Xiao's voice. "Did you hear me?" It was Liang Xiao's voice. "You made a mistake. You're making an international call, and I'll be able to find you. Get out of here." A piercing siren suddenly sounded, and several police cars appeared on both sides of the street. There was also a black Chevrolet Suburban off-road vehicle, and the entire street was blocked. I'm leaving." Charlotte hung up the phone and threw it on the ground. Then, he quickly got into the green belt next to the sidewalk, climbed over the wall, and entered Bonjen Temple. The police lights flashed, and a large group of Korean police and plainclothes agents surrounded him. Chapter 327. Entering Bonjen Temple, Charlotte ran with the corner of the wall in his hand. The police sirens behind him were ear-piercing, and the sound of scolding was incessant. The nerves in his entire body were stretched taut. The ability of his left eye had been awakened. Dark corners, behind walls, windows on tall buildings, and so on, everything within a radius of 1,000 meters was under his control. On the left, a few hundred meters away, 2 Korean police cars were knocking on the gate of Bonjen Temple with his photo. On the right, 50 meters away, a police car drove past the wall, and a Chevrolet Suburban carrying a CIA agent. And in front of him, a helicopter was quickly approaching. There were people in the sky and on the ground trying to capture him. It was a trap, but no matter how big the net was, it had holes. Just as the Chevrolet Suburban drove forward, Charlotte turned to the wall on the right and leaped onto the wall. He leaned against the wall and waited until the Chevrolet Suburban turned the corner before jumping off the wall. He crossed the street and snuck into the slums, which had a more complicated terrain. Just as he left, the helicopter roared over, and its bright searchlights swept across Bonjen Temple. At the same time, a large number of police officers and South Korean military officers swarmed the entrance. If he had been 2 minutes late, Charlotte would have been trapped inside Bonjen Temple. Passing through the alley, a motorcycle sped toward him from the other side of the road. The female rider on the motorcycle was wearing a tight leather jacket. She was curvaceous, and her long legs were alluring. She was wearing a helmet, so her face couldn't be seen, but Charlotte still saw the face hidden under the helmet. It was Liang Xiao's face. The motorcycle stopped by the side of the road. Liang Xiao pulled up the windshield and said anxiously, "Get on." Charlotte hesitated but didn't move. He had been betrayed once, and he didn't want to be betrayed a second time. If this was a scene between Liang Xiao and the CIA director, then he would be the poor guy who was fooled. "You don't have time," Liang Xiao said anxiously. "Please believe me, I'm not lying to you this time. If I wanted to lie to you, why would I call you? Do you know what I'm facing?" A few minutes ago, she had made that call to Charlotte. She was facing the consequences of betraying the CIA and the punishment for betraying the CIA, and it was very serious. A police car appeared on the other side of the road, its siren tearing through the silence of the night sky. In the sky, another helicopter also flew over. Since they couldn't find Charlotte in the Reverend Grace Temple, they would definitely expand their search area. Not to mention the Gangnam district, the entire Seoul was under martial law. Charlotte really didn't have time to think about it. If he had a choice, he wouldn't have gotten into Liang Xiao's car. Unfortunately, he had no other choice. Charlotte walked quickly and got on the motorcycle. Liang Xiao handed him a helmet. He put it on and hugged Liang Xiao's waist. Liang Xiao released the clutch and stepped on the accelerator. The motorcycle rushed forward like a beast. The direction she chose was the same as Charlotte's. It was also a ghetto with complicated terrain. The night wind whistled past their ears, and the police car and helicopter were left behind. Charlotte's heart was filled with complicated feelings. It had something to do with the dense military police cars, and special agents chasing after him, but it also had something to do with Liang Xiao. He hugged Liang Xiao's waist. It was still the waist that he was familiar with, soft and slender. He didn't know how many times he had hugged it, but the feeling this time was completely different. He couldn't describe that feeling. The two of them didn't speak along the way. They avoided the crowded roads and only chose the remote alleys. 10 minutes later, the motorcycle arrived at the ghetto next to the Gangnam district. The bustling scene from before was like an illusion. There were no skyscrapers or dazzling neon lights, nor were there spacious and clean streets. All they could see were low shacks, plastic sheets, and cobweb-like wires. The streets were narrow, and garbage could be seen everywhere, exuding an unpleasant smell. This was the rural-urban fringe of Korea. It was said that Korea was picturesque, but only when one arrived at the ghetto of Seoul would one realize that there was an ugly side to every place. Liang Xiao drove the motorcycle into a shack. There were a lot of cardboard and plastic bags piled up in the yard of the shack. There were also some sofas and other messy things that had been thrown away. A big yellow dog barked at the motorcycle, and the chain rattled as it pulled on it. Liang Xiao took off her helmet and scolded, "Stop barking." The big yellow dog seemed to understand Chinese. It tucked its tail between its legs and crawled into its kennel. This situation confused Charlotte. All the signs showed that Liang Xiao was familiar with this place, including the dog. A middle-aged man walked out of the shack. He had a yellow face, a thick beard, and long hair that hadn't been washed for a long time. He was simply a bear. But this was just a facade. This middle-aged man was very tall, and his eyes were very sharp. At first glance, one could tell that he was not a scavenger. Go outside and keep an eye on him. If anything happens, contact me immediately, Liang Xiao said. Okay. The middle-aged man responded, turned around, and left the shack. Only then did Charlotte jump down from the motorcycle. He looked at the back of the middle-aged man and asked, "Who is he?" "A person who should have disappeared from this world, but I saved his life," Liang Xiao said. "His name is Pu Zhenlong. You can trust him." Charlotte's eyes moved to Liang Xiao's face. "What about you? Should I trust you?" Liang Xiao suddenly fell silent. She avoided Charlotte's eyes, and her eyes were full of sadness and guilt. She could feel that Charlotte had given her his true feelings and shared everything he could with her, but she had hurt him. Now, faced with this question, she did not know how to answer. "Do you want to answer me?" Charlotte asked. He wanted to know the answer. Liang Xiao looked up at the night sky and said, "Let's go inside and talk. The United States satellite technology is very scary now. If we keep standing under the sky and talk, we might be discovered." Charlotte sighed in his heart and followed Liang Xiao into the shack. The environment of the shack was very bad. The instant noodle bowls on the small square table had not been cleaned for at least a few days. There were a few flies flying around them. The floor in the corner of the shack was slightly cleaner, but it was not much better. Men's clothes and socks were thrown there, and the smell was worse. Liang Xiao frowned. This guy doesn't even know how to clean up. How can people stay in such a dirty place? You're still so clean. In the past, you always kept your room very clean. As long as I was in your house, you would prepare a clean pair of socks for me every morning, Charlotte said calmly. Those images also appeared in his mind. Although such a long time had passed, he could not forget the good times he had with Liang Xiao. Liang Xiao suddenly turned around and threw herself into Charlotte's arms. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed his lips fiercely. She did not care about all of this. What senior CIB intelligence officer? What AE capsule? She just wanted to go back to that time. Her lips were still so soft and delicate, and the fragrance from between her lips and teeth was still so charming. Her chest was still so full and firm, and it pressed hard against his chest. This feeling was also very familiar to him. Also, her pair of impeccably perfect legs would always bring back memories of her body. However, Charlotte still pushed Liang Xiao away. Liang Xiao still wanted to come over, and he took another step back. He did not say anything, but this was his attitude. You, Liang Xiao said faintly, are you not willing to forgive me? Charlotte shook his head with a bitter smile. Some things can't be undone. I was in so much pain when you left. You hurt me so deeply. It was not easy for me to walk out of that pain. Why did you appear in my life again? A thin layer of mist appeared in Liang Xiao's eyes. Your life was in danger. How could I watch you die? In fact, even if Liang Xiao did not call and did not come to pick up Charlotte, he was confident that he could escape from the encirclement. Because he could discover his captors before they found him, he could avoid them in advance. However, Liang Xiao did come and risked her life to save him. How could he not appreciate this? It was just that he did not want to show it. It's not worth it for you to do this. Do you think it's a trap? If you don't believe me, you can kill me. Liang Xiao took out a gun, turned it upside down, and handed a pistol to Charlotte. Charlotte walked past her, not even wanting to look at the gun. He sat on the floor and lightly said, "Put the gun away. If I wanted to retaliate against you, I wouldn't have let you go in China." A tear fell from Liang Xiao's eye. She wiped the tear with her sleeve while she put the gun away. When can I leave here? Tomorrow morning. Liang Xiao said, I've arranged it for you. Pu Zhenlong will drive you to Pusan port tomorrow morning, and you can go back to China by water. Her route was the same as Long Bing's. What about you? Charlotte asked. Do you still care about me? Liang Xiao smiled bitterly. You don't have to worry about me. I won't be in trouble. You said that the phone has been monitored. If you call me, won't the CIA be able to find you? I said, don't worry about me. Liang Xiao's emotions were a little out of control. Charlotte was also silent, and his heart was heavy. Even if Liang Xiao would be investigated by the CIA, or even face worse results, what could he do? He could not take her back to China. With her identity, once she returned to China, she would even face the death penalty. I'm sorry. Liang Xiao took a deep breath. I shouldn't have spoken to you like this. It's nothing. Why do you work for 101 innings? Liang Xiao looked straight at Charlotte. Isn't it good to be an honest businessman? You can be with Shintu Tianin. She is a very good woman. Your life can be very happy, but you chose such a path. Tell me why. Charlotte smiled bitterly. Do you think I don't want to live like that? From the moment I took the AE capsule, I was destined not to live an ordinary life. The AE Research Center will not let me go, and the CIA will not let me go, so you appeared in my life. One of the reasons I work for 101 innings is to find a place that can protect me. Liang Xiao was silent for a long time, and suddenly smiled. Life is so helpless. Forget it, let's not talk about these unhappy things. It's rare for us to be together. Why don't we have a drink? We haven't had a drink together for a long time. Okay, let's have a drink. Charlotte found it hard to refuse. Just then, the big yellow dog outside the shed barked. Chapter 328. If Pu Zhenlong had returned, the big yellow dog outside the shed would not have barked. Its cry immediately made Xia Lei and Liang Xiao, who were in the hut, nervous. Neither of them were ordinary people, so even the slightest movement would alert them. Almost at the same time, both of their eyes moved to the direction of the door. You stay here. I'll go and take a look. Liang Xiao walked to the door with a gun. At this time, Charlotte had already seen through the wall of the shed and saw the scene outside. He saw Pu Zhenlong and the woman with a gun behind him, Long Bing. Long Bing pointed a gun at Pu Zhenlong's head. This scene shocked Charlotte. He hurriedly stood up and grabbed Liang Xiao's hand. Go! You? Liang Xiao looked at Charlotte in surprise. At the same time, Charlotte's reaction suddenly made her nervous. I don't have time to explain to you. Go or you won't be able to leave. Charlotte was very anxious. If Long Bing came in, there would only be one thing that would happen. Either she would kill Liang Xiao, or Liang Xiao would kill her. He would not accept either of the two women's death. What made it even more difficult for him was that once the two women started a gunfight, who should he help as he was stuck in the middle? Liang Xiao was a smart woman. She quickly guessed something. She tentatively said, "Is it someone from 101 innings? Long Bing?" Charlotte nodded and stared at the wall of the shed. Outside the shed, Long Bing had taken Pu Jinlong into the yard. The big yellow dog pounced on them. Long Bing shook her gun with a silencer. The big yellow dog's forehead suddenly burst into a flower of blood, and then he fell to the ground. Pu Jinlong just wanted to show signs of escaping, but before he could do anything, Long Bing's gun was pressed against the back of his head. The sound of the gun with a silencer was very soft, but Liang Xiao still knew what had happened outside. She was still unwilling to believe that Long Bing would chase them here. She stared straight at Charlotte. "Why is she here?" "I don't know. Don't ask. Go." Charlotte couldn't help but push her to the back door of the shed. Liang Xiao smiled. "You care about me." Xiao Lei was angry and a little out of control. With a wave of his hand, he slapped her perky butt. "Let's go." This slap was more effective than 100 words. Liang Xiao suddenly leaned over and kissed Charlotte. Then, she opened the back door and disappeared into the night. Charlotte was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. He didn't know why he slapped her butt. Perhaps it was a habit. In the past, he often slapped her plump body. But at that time, she was still his girlfriend, and their relationship wasn't like this now. However, he didn't waste any more time. He closed the back door and walked to the front door. "Don't mess around. We're not enemies." Outside the door, Pu Jinlong was still explaining to Long Bing. Long Bing said in a low voice, "Open the door." As soon as she finished speaking, Charlotte opened the door. The moment he was at the door, Long Bing aimed the muzzle at Charlotte. When she saw that it was Charlotte, she moved the muzzle to Pu Jinlong's head and began to observe the situation in the shed from the corner of her eyes. Charlotte said, "Put the gun away. He saved me. He's not an enemy." "He saved you?" Long Bing was suspicious, but she still let go of Pu Jinlong. "Yes, I paid him." Charlotte couldn't find any other explanation. Long Bing entered the hut and vigilantly scanned the situation inside the hut. Women liked a clean and comfortable environment. She and Liang Xiao were the same. Pu Jinlong's house was dirty and smelly. She didn't want to stay there for another minute. After making sure that there was no one in the house, she left. "Let's go." Pu Jinlong glanced at Charlotte but didn't say anything. He was guessing something in his heart. Obviously, he wasn't guessing where Liang Xiao went. He didn't need to guess to know the answer. He was guessing the relationship between Charlotte, Liang Xiao, and Long Bing. However, he obviously couldn't guess it. Charlotte followed Long Bing into the depths of the slums. The route that Long Bing chose was all dark without street lights. From time to time, they would encounter a drunk man lying on the ground or a couple making out on the side of the road. The scene was quite embarrassing. "How did you find me?" After leaving Pu Jinlong's shed for some distance, Charlotte still asked. Long Bing said, "Do you remember that we had a meal together before we left?" Xiao Lei was curious why she brought up the topic of food, but he still went along with her. "Yeah, you even said it's a graduation feast. Then do you remember that I got you a bowl of porridge?" "Why did you talk about porridge?" "If you don't want to tell me, then forget it." "Aren't I telling you? There's a locator in that bowl of porridge. It's not a GPS, it's our Big Dipper locator. I can find you, but the CIA can't," Long Bing said. Charlotte was stunned for a moment. "You're in my stomach. You have a special identity. You're a special talent of our country, and we have to rely on you to rescue Tang Yuyan and a few experts in Afghanistan, so you can't have any accidents. I put a locator in your stomach. Even if you're caught, we can save you. This is a last resort. The reason why I didn't tell you was because I didn't want you to be distracted." Charlotte laughed self-deprecatingly. So, you're giving me preferential treatment? Don't say things out of anger. We're all doing this for the benefit of the country. Long Bing turned around and rolled her eyes at Charlotte. Not only do you have it in your stomach, but I also have it. Tang Buchuan also has it. Your friend doesn't have it. If it weren't for you, I would have sent him to prison for 10 years. Don't. Let's talk about something else. Charlotte was now regretting allowing Qin Xiang to steal a few more antiques. If she wasn't allowed to sell them, it would be a hot potato in his hands. Okay, let's talk about something else. Anyway, we still have to walk for a while. Long Bing said, Why don't we talk about Liang Xiao? Charlotte was stunned for a moment. He secretly had a headache. Could it be that Long Bing had found traces of Liang Xiao? What, you don't want to talk about it? Why did you mention her? Charlotte bit the bullet and said, You know, I don't want to talk about her anymore. Long Bing suddenly stopped and stared at Charlotte. Charlotte felt a little guilty under her gaze. What are you doing? Long Bing nodded. You're very smart, smarter than anyone I've ever met. But you made a big mistake. That is, you dated Liang Xiao. Do you think I can't find out the real identity of Liang Xiao? She suddenly left China, and then her father, Liang Zhengchun, also left China and went to the United States. This is not a coincidence. My intuition has always been very accurate. I feel that there must be something wrong. So, I specially investigated Liang Xiao. Guess what I found about her? Charlotte couldn't explain anymore. His head was buzzing, and he couldn't work normally. Are you going to tell me, or should I say it? Long Bing's eyes were full of temptation. Say it myself? Charlotte couldn't accept what Liang Xiao wanted from him. If he let Long Bing say it herself, he might be suspected by her and even lose her trust. How to choose? This was really difficult for him. The atmosphere between the two of them became heavy and awkward. However, it was this short silence that gave Charlotte a chance to adjust his brain. Once his brain calmed down, his thinking speed was also extremely fast. Almost at the same time, his brain sent a command to his left eye. His left eye twitched slightly, and the clothes in front of Long Bing's chest disappeared without a sound. One side of her towering snow-white chest was exposed, and then this towering snow-white chest quickly melted, like snow under the sun, revealing the hidden heart. Long Bing's heart rate was on the low side, and it didn't beat more than 10 times in 10 seconds. Under normal circumstances, a woman's heart rate was between 60 to 70, and it would be faster when she was exercising, excited, or angry. Her current heart rate matched her heart rate when she was asleep. She didn't sleep, but her heart rate was when she was asleep. What did this mean? This meant that she was deliberately controlling her heartbeat to make herself look calm. If she found out about Liang Xiao's identity, she would definitely be angry. Even if she looked calm on the surface, the emotions in her heart couldn't be eliminated, which would inevitably affect her heartbeat. She didn't have any emotions of anger, only suspicion and testing. In less than 30 seconds, Charlotte ended his deep X-ray vision of Long Bing. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and there was a smile on his face. I actually want to know more about her. I've only been with her for a few months. It's not long, but it's not short either. I actually don't know much about her, especially her past. She never told me. I only know that she studied in the United States. If you know, you can tell me if you want to. If not, then forget it. I'm not that interested anyway. After all, we've broken up. With this answer, even if Long Bing found out something in the future, he could disassociate himself from it. You really don't want to say it? Charlotte shrugged. I've told you everything I can. How can I tell you what I don't know? I say, when did you become so wishy-washy? Long Bing curled the corner of her mouth slightly, turned around, and walked down the alley. Forget it. Let's not talk about that woman. Let's go. Walking out of the alley, Charlotte saw a container truck with the words, Sunshine Seafood, written in Korean. Then he saw Tang Buchuan sitting in the driver's seat. The guy was already dressed in a standard blue-collar outfit, and there was a thick black beard on his lip. Before Long Bing and Charlotte could approach, Tang Buchuan got out of the car. He opened the door of the container truck and gestured for Long Bing and Charlotte to go in. Charlotte climbed into the container truck. There were a lot of seafood in the container truck, including flounder and squid frozen in ice. The smell was very fishy. Long Bing also climbed into the container truck. She reached out and opened a bottom panel, revealing a 2-meter-long and 1-meter-wide secret compartment. There were some old clothes in the secret compartment, and it looked like a coffin. Charlotte knew that this was his hiding place, but just as he was about to climb in, Long Bing climbed in first and occupied the most comfortable position. No way, you want to hide too? Charlotte had a headache. Such a small space was suitable for hiding one person, but it would be too crowded to hide 2 people. There's also a hogwash truck. Do you want to take that one? Tang Buchuan said with a smile. Charlotte looked at Tang Buchuan speechlessly, then bit the bullet and got into the secret compartment. Tang Buchuan also got into the container truck, closed the open bottom panel, and then put the box of seafood on top. 2 minutes later, the container truck started the engine and drove forward. However, it didn't go 5 meters before a stone hit the tire. The 2 people in the secret compartment suddenly stuck together, face to face, chest to chest, and legs to legs, as if they were glued together. Don't think too much or my gun will fire, Long Bing said in Charlotte's ear. But at this moment, the container truck violently bumped again, and Charlotte's mouth suddenly uncontrollably stuck to Long Bing's cherry lips. Chapter 329. Long Bing's gun did not misfire in the end, but Charlotte's gun almost misfired. He and Long Bing were squeezed in the narrow hidden compartment. As the wheels bumped, his and Long Bing's bodies were always in a state of close contact, especially her impressive breasts. They did not stop along the way, either squeezing his chest or clamping his arm. That feeling was really indescribable. What made him even more nervous was that Long Bing's thighs and lower abdomen were constantly invading his most sensitive areas. Even though it was passive, it didn't feel like it was active or passive. Hence, no matter how he rubbed against her, he was always alone and as firm as one. For a man to maintain that state, it was definitely not enjoyment, but torture. Long Bing did not feel much better. She could feel the change in Charlotte's body and knew the reason, but she could not avoid it. Xia Lei stood alone by her side, as firm and upright as one. Her charming face was also flushed from start to finish, and it had not been normal for a moment. The 2 of them did not stop quarreling. Pervert, what are you thinking in that head of yours? How am I perverted? Everything is perverted. You shouldn't be called Charlotte, you should be called Xia Lu. The container car suddenly jumped, and Long Bing's lips moved and kissed Charlotte's lips. Her lips were soft and moist, and there was a charming fragrance between them, like the taste of lilies. However, before Charlotte could do it more frequently, Long Bing moved her lips away and even spat twice beside him. Charlotte laughed. You shouldn't be called Long Bing, you should be called Dragon. I'm warning you, don't kiss me, or I'll… Or what? What do you want? Long Bing's tone was aggressive, but it was slightly trembling. She was very nervous. Charlotte's head suddenly hit the wooden board of the hidden compartment. Ha, you deserve it. How dare you kiss my eyes? I didn't mean to. Just like that, they squeezed each other and kissed each other all the way. 4 hours later, the container truck finally arrived at the port of Busan. Tang Buchuan parked the container truck in a warehouse, then opened the hidden door and released Charlotte and Long Bing. Thank you for your hard work. We're here. Tang Buchuan greeted Charlotte and Long Bing with a smile. Charlotte and Long Bing didn't even say a word to him. The 2 of them quickly jumped out of the container. One of them ran towards the containers on the right side of the warehouse, while the other ran towards the containers on the left side of the warehouse. After a while, he heard the sound of water. There was water on his left and on his right. He shrugged and smiled bitterly. 2 hours later, on the high seas, a freighter loaded with containers sailed towards the Shanghai port. In one of the cabins, Xia Lei held an ancient sword in his hand and carefully examined it. Long Bing and Tang Buchuan also stood next to Charlotte and looked at the ancient sword together. This sword was Attila's sword that Charlotte risked his life to steal. More than 1,000 years ago, it symbolized the power of Attila, the Hun king. More than 1,000 years ago, who knew how many people had died under this sword? That person's corpse had already disappeared without a trace, but this sword still existed. The mottled sword body, the gap on the blade, and the green gem inlaid on the hilt all exuded an ancient and mysterious aura. It weighs 31 pounds. Tang Buchuan said, "I've weighed it. It shouldn't be an ordinary iron sword. I don't know what it's made of. It's amazing. I really want to study it if I have a chance." Coming from the Tang sect, he had a strong interest in weapons. That was why he weighed Attila's sword and wanted to study it. Long Bing said, "There's no chance. You'll have to give it to the female chief in exchange for your sister and those experts." Tang Buchuan said, "I'm just curious. Saving my sister is the most important thing." He looked at Xia Lei and said, "Brother Xia, please take care of my sister. Please bring her back to the country." Charlotte nodded and said, "Don't worry. I'll bring her back safely." Tang Buchuan smiled and said, "What I told you is true. As long as you bring my sister back, my grandfather will accept you as a disciple. At that time, you'll also be a member of the Tang family." Charlotte was absolutely not interested in becoming a member of the Tang family. He was only interested in the Tang sect's hidden weapons and qigong. After chatting for a while, Tang Buchuan and Long Bing left the cabin and Charlotte got a chance to observe Attila's sword. Charlotte's left eye locked onto the sword. The rusty sword slowly melted and became thinner and thinner. During this process, his left eye was like a smelting furnace, and Attila's sword was like a piece of iron ore. The impurities were removed in the furnace, and it became purer and purer, turning into steel step by step. Suddenly, a piece of green entered Charlotte's sight. It was a green strip that was integrated into the sword, from the hilt to the tip. It was about 3 feet long and 1 centimeter wide. It looked like a chopstick that had been lengthened. This discovery shocked Charlotte. When he got the sword, he felt that the weight was wrong. It was very strange, but he didn't expect that there was something hidden in the sword. There was no doubt that at least 2/3 of the weight of the sword came from the green strip. Its density was beyond his imagination. Could it be the ancient alloy that Peaceful mentioned? Charlotte suddenly thought of this, but then he shook his head. No, the strength and toughness of the cobalt alloy that Peaceful mentioned is better than the current metal, but it has a special feature. The metal hidden in this sword is very heavy. If it isn't the ancient alloy that Peaceful mentioned, then what kind of metal is it? Why is it all green? A lot of questions filled Charlotte's head. The best way was to melt the sword and take out the green metal inside to study. But if he did that, Big Moon Tia would have her people kill Tang Yuyan, Peaceful, and the other experts. Attila's sword is the holy relic of the White Hun tribe. Those women value this sword more than anything else. If I trade it with Big Moon Tia and she gets the sword, I'm afraid I won't have a chance to study it. Whatever, it's just a sword. Maybe its secret can be solved with the Ming Dynasty compass. Why should I be in a hurry? Saving people is more important. Charlotte gave up. He put away Attila's sword. The ship's alarm suddenly sounded. Is the CIB catching up? Charlotte's heart sank. He quickly left the cabin and went up to the deck. Long Bing, Tang Buchuan, and a few agents from Innings 101 were on the deck. Long Bing and Tang Buchuan used binoculars to look at the 2 Korean Coast Guard ships that were chasing after them. Xia Lei glanced over and saw them clearly. They were 2 Coast Guard ships with a very large tonnage. They were at least 3,000 tons in weight. The 2 Korean Coast Guard ships were moving very fast, close to 18 knots. At this speed, it would only take 10 minutes for them to catch up to the ship that was traveling at less than 10 knots. A 101 agent came over with a communicator. Section Chief Long, they want to talk to the captain. Give it to me. Long Bing took the communicator from the agent. A voice in Chinese came from the communicator. We are the Korean Coast Guard. We suspect that your ship has prohibited items. Please stop the ship immediately for inspection. Long Bing said coldly, This is international waters. You don't have the right to do this. Your map is wrong. This is Korean waters. We have the right to board the ship for inspection. I repeat, stop the ship immediately. Otherwise, we have the right to open fire. The voice from the communicator was threatening and arrogant. Long Bing paused and suddenly said to the communicator, Let's go home and have some tea. What did you say? You're asking for death. The Korean Coast Guard was furious. Stop the ship or open fire. Long Bing was too lazy to talk to him. She threw the communicator to the agent from innings 101. Charlotte frowned. This is international waters. These Korean Coast Guards are too arrogant. They asked us to stop the ship. If we don't, will they open fire? Long Bing stared at Charlotte and said provocatively, Are you afraid? Ever since she spent more than 4 hours in the container truck with Xia Lei, she had been provoking Xia Lei intentionally or unintentionally, as if she wanted to get back at him. Charlotte pretended to be indifferent. Me? Afraid? I'm a good swimmer. If worse comes to worst, I'll just go swimming. The corner of Long Bing's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Don't worry, I already said that we have a backup plan. Those Korean Coast Guards can scare our fishermen. They don't even have the qualifications to scare us. Tang Buchuan crossed his arms and said calmly, Brother Xia, just wait and see. The situation in front of them was very bad, but Long Bing and Tang Buchuan both looked confident and not worried about being caught by the 2 South Korean Coast Guard ships. Xia Lei was very curious as to what kind of backup plan the 2 of them had, but he couldn't guess. The 2 Korean Coast Guard ships were getting closer and closer. They could even see the Korean Coast Guard standing on the deck. He didn't see anyone in civilian clothes, but Charlotte was sure that there were CIA agents hidden among the Korean Coast Guard. Seeing that they were about to catch up, but there was still no movement from the backup plan, Charlotte couldn't help but feel nervous. Bang bang bang! A Korean Coast Guard gave a final warning to the Tianming gun. At this moment, there was a sudden movement in the sea next to the cargo ship. Then, a black behemoth emerged from the sea. That's China's submarine. We've been locked on by the radar. Damn it, turn around. The Korean Coast Guard ship suddenly panicked. The black submarine only appeared for a moment before diving back into the sea. But a submarine was a submarine. Its battlefield was originally underwater, and its deterrence in the sea was far greater than on the surface. This was the backup plan Long Bing and Tang Buchuan talked about. Charlotte had a bitter smile on his face. He really didn't expect it to be such a big scene. The 2 South Korean Coast Guard boats quickly turned around and left. The speed of their escape seemed to be faster than when they chased after them. After all, this was international waters. They had already violated international law by shooting at China's cargo ship. If there was a firefight, they would be the ones in the wrong. Even if they were killed, they could be treated as pirates. Long Bing walked to the cabin. When she passed by Charlotte, she said, We have to talk when we get back. Charlotte didn't say anything. He was still looking at the 2 Coast Guard ships that had fled. He was too lazy to guess what Long Bing wanted to talk to him about. Chapter 330. What happened in South Korea caused an uproar. The South Korean police, intelligence agents, and even the military and marine police were all mobilized, but the media didn't report on it the next day. The official explanation was that it was a counter-terrorism exercise, which was completely different from the actual situation. It wasn't surprising that this happened, and Xiaoxian brought people to capture Charlotte only because she was instructed by the CIB. He had no evidence to prove that Charlotte stole the sword of Attila, and the CIB didn't want to make a big deal out of it. The CIB did not want to make a big deal out of this. Their only goal was to capture Xiaolei. Nothing else mattered. Charlotte escaped, and the CIB didn't need to make a big deal out of it. It wouldn't do them any good. At 11 o'clock that night, in the capital of China. Go in by yourself. I still have to arrange for your return to Afghanistan. At the door of Tang Yuyan's house, Long Bing stopped and said to Charlotte, the CIB can easily find out the relationship between the sword of Attila and the White Hun tribe. This is not good for the rescue plan, so we have to act as soon as possible. Go and tell them that we have to leave tomorrow morning. No problem, they should agree, Charlotte said. Long Bing turned and left, and Charlotte entered the house with the wooden box containing the sword of Attila. The sword of Attila originally didn't have a wooden box. This was prepared by Tang Buchuan for Charlotte. It was easy to carry and could avoid being seen by others. There was no one in the living room, and there was a pile of snacks on the coffee table. Potato chips, melon seeds, and Hawaiian fruit were all opened. The carpet was also full of fruit shells. The women in the tribe never threw the fruit shells into the trash because there was no such thing in the tribe. Charlotte's left eye moved slightly, and then he saw Taya and Shalami, who were sleeping in Tang Yuyan's room. The two women seemed to be sleeping soundly, and did not seem to hear the sound of him entering the door. Then, he saw the two knives placed by the pillows of the two women. Elder Tia had a sharp knife for picking bones by her pillow, and Sairami had a kitchen knife specially used for cutting vegetables by her pillow. Both knives were very sharp. The two tribeswomen were on high alert even in their sleep, ready to fight at any time, but they didn't hear the sound of him entering the door. It was really funny. Charlotte withdrew his gaze and carried the wooden box to Tang Yuyan's room. Even if Taya and Sairami were asleep, he would have to wake them up and talk to them about returning to Afghanistan. Charlotte reached out to grab the doorknob and gently twisted it. Then, he pushed the door open and prepared to enter. But at this moment Taya and Shalami, who were lying on the bed, simultaneously grabbed the knives beside their pillows, and with a shake of their hands they stabbed towards the door. A cold glint flashed, and Charlotte suddenly pulled the door in front of him. Cha-cha! The sharp knife for picking bones and the kitchen knife stabbed into the door almost at the same time. Charlotte was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. He pushed the door open and shouted in a low voice, "It's me! Xia!" Shalami heard Charlotte's voice clearly, and in a panic, she lifted the quilt and jumped out of bed. A beautiful white scene suddenly appeared in Charlotte's line of sight. Shalami was only wearing a pair of handmade underwear, and nothing else on it. Elder Tia's body was a little better, she was wearing a white bra. It was obvious that she had bought it recently, and there was obviously no such thing in the White Hun tribe. However, the female chief seemed to have bought the wrong size and also the wrong type. The white bra was only two small triangles, barely covering the two most important parts, while the remaining 4/5 of the bra was exposed to the air. That alluring scenery made people want to discuss the cultural knowledge of underwear with her. Then, Charlotte saw the female chief's second mistake in dressing, and that was that her underwear was not a normal underwear, but a white thong. The white thong seemed to be a set with the bra she was wearing, and they both belonged to the category of sexy underwear, so much so that it could not completely cover the parts that should be covered. The moment Shalami lifted the quilt, those alluring spring scenes were exposed, indistinct, hazy, and full of temptation. A few seconds ago, Charlotte was frightened by the two knives and broke out in a cold sweat. Now, he saw that his whole body was covered in hot sweat. First, he was shocked, then he was stimulated. The feeling of ice and fire at the same time was really strange. Shalami did not care that Charlotte saw her body, because she had already taken the initiative to expose it in the tribe. But Elder Tia was different. She had never exposed herself in front of Charlotte like this. After the quilt was lifted by the clown Shalami, she was stunned for a moment, then jumped out of bed, and grabbed her clothes to cover her body in a panic. But before she could grab her clothes, a light sound was heard. The clown Shalami had actually turned on the light. This time she was completely exposed. "Sia, it's really you." Seeing Charlotte standing in the doorway, Shalami cheered, and opened her arms to hug Charlotte. Her upper body was bare, and her hug had a kind of magical power that could make one's nose bleed. However, the moment before she hugged him, Charlotte finally came back to his senses. He hurriedly pushed the wooden box in his hand out, just in time to block Shalami. "The thing you wanted, the sword of Attila, I've got it." Shalami originally wanted to hug Charlotte, but instead hugged a wooden box. But she was originally a woman with only one nerve. When she heard that it was the sword of Attila, her attention was immediately diverted. The sword of Attila? Oh my God! Elder Tia also came over. She didn't even bother to take her clothes, a thong, a small bra, and a spring scene. She snatched the wooden box from Shalami's hands, and impatiently opened it to check. When the wooden box was opened, two women surrounded the wooden box with their buttocks in the air. They were both perfectly round and plump, just like the full moon. Coupled with an ancient sword, this picture was so beautiful that one didn't want to blink. It was difficult for ordinary people to associate sexy buttocks with an ancient sword, but this picture was vividly presented in front of Charlotte, unreservedly, for him to enjoy. He felt strange. It's really the sword of Attila. After more than 1,000 years, it's finally back, it's finally back. Elder Tia stroked the sword, and tears of excitement flowed down her face. Shalami was also very excited, but there were no tears. Her reaction was completely different from Elder Tia's. Elder Tia was excited to the point of tears, but Shalami was blushing. Her cute, doll-like face was flushed, as if she had drunk a lot of alcohol. "I've got the item, and I've given it to you." Charlotte moved his gaze away from the two buttocks with some difficulty. "Get ready, we'll return to Afghanistan tomorrow morning. Chief Taya of the Great Moon Empire, please keep your promise and release the people you have imprisoned." "No problem." Elder Tia closed the wooden box and turned to look at Charlotte. "We value our credibility as much as our lives. Don't worry, as long as I bring the sword of Attila back to the tribe, I'll immediately release your friends and those treasure hunters." "What about the deal between us?" Charlotte asked tentatively. "I've already asked my people to buy the equipment, and I'll build a hydroelectric power station for you." Elder Tia revealed a rare smile. "It'll be equally effective. You've returned the sword of Attila to us, and to us, you're already our most precious friend. When you return to the tribe, you'll receive the highest treatment." Charlotte also smiled. "Thank you." Suddenly, Sirami said, "Chief, Sia is now our tribe's most precious friend. Please give me to Sia as your most precious gift." Charlotte was greatly embarrassed, but he could not help but feel moved. This was contradictory, but also normal. As long as it was a normal man, who could refuse a gift like Sirami? A child's face, just the thought of it could make most men's hearts move, not to mention completely owning it. It seemed that as long as Elder Tia said the word, Sirami would become Charlotte's gift. Sirami eagerly looked at Elder Tia, waiting for her to nod. "We'll talk about it when we get back." This was Elder Tia's answer. Sirami's head immediately drooped, and she lost her spirit. Charlotte secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. "Fortunately, I didn't agree. Otherwise, if she really became my gift, and I had to take her away, it would really be troublesome. She's so lively and active, but also so stupid. Taking care of her would also be a very troublesome thing." Charlotte did not know whether this thought was self-consolation or something else. Even he himself did not know. "Go and rest." I'll leave it to you to decide when we should depart. Tia of the Great Moon Empire ordered him to leave. If Xia Lei had not brought the sword of Attila, she would have kicked Xia Lei out of the room with her clothes, which did not even add up to 10 square centimeters. All right, see you tomorrow morning. Charlotte left the room and closed the door. Sirami said with dissatisfaction, Chief, you didn't agree to give him to me, but now I'm giving myself to him. Why don't you agree? Is there a difference? Elder Tia rolled her eyes at Sirami. Sirami stared blankly at Elder Tia. Is there a difference? Elder Tia could no longer be bothered to talk nonsense with her. She took out the sword of Attila, placed it on the bed, and knelt down to worship the sacred object of her ancestors. She muttered something, appearing very pious. Sirami was in a daze for a while, and then she also knelt down beside Elder Tia, worshipping the sword of Attila together with Elder Tia. Outside the door, Charlotte stopped in his tracks when he heard the chattering coming from inside the room. He returned to the door and peeped at the scene inside the room through the door. He was very curious about what kind of prayer Elder Tia would be chanting. Now, he was very curious about everything regarding the sword of Attila and wanted to know. In the room, 2 perfectly round buttocks were facing Xia Lei. They were raised up high and the scenery was surging. Such a posture could tempt him to commit a crime without any seductive action. This was especially so for the elder Moon Tia. Her little white penis was like a whirlpool that attracted Xia Lei's eyes. Xia Lei's X-ray vision was instantly sucked in. Elder Tia's voice was heard. O great Attila, please guide us forward and rebuild our former glory. It was just an ordinary prayer, and there was no secret to it, but Charlotte stood there quietly, unable to leave. Chapter 331. Before the sky brightened, a military transport plane took off from a military airport and flew straight to Xian province. There was one more special passenger on the plane, Sherboran. Tang Buchuan and Long Bing were also on the plane, as well as Taya and Sirami. However, the 2 white Hun women were being watched by Tang Buchuan and Long Bing, so they couldn't get close to Sherboran and Charlotte, who were talking. Taya hugged the wooden box containing the sword of Attila tightly. For her, the contents of the wooden box were more important than her life. Sirami blinked her blue eyes and stared at Charlotte and Sherboran in the distance. She seemed to be guessing the conversation between the 2 men. It was obvious that she couldn't do it. In fact, she didn't know what was going on in her head. On the other side, Sherboran's voice was very low. You see, you've completed such a difficult mission. I can't do without you. In order to express the success of your mission, I've submitted a report to the higher-ups and asked them to give the green light to your military factory. Your military factory will soon be able to start production. Charlotte smiled bitterly. Originally, I planned to return to Afghanistan after the ribbon-cutting ceremony, but you said that time was tight, so I returned to Afghanistan immediately. I've done what I could, but I want to make it clear that this is the last time I'll perform a mission for you. Don't look for me for such things in the future. It's not a problem to modify the gun or anything. I can do it at any time. Sherboran frowned slightly. With your ability, you should serve the country. Our country also needs talents like you. I'll pretend that I didn't hear what you said and don't say it again. You serve the country here, and the country won't treat you badly. Look, how about this? When I go back, I'll report to the higher-ups. First, I'll place a big order for your military factory, ordering 10,000 pistols or something. First, let your workers practice and break in your machines. What do you think? An order for 10,000 pistols, even if it was priced at 2,000 yuan each, was a big order of 20 million yuan. With such an order, the workers and machines of the Thunder Horse Army factory would not be idle and would immediately produce benefits. Moreover, this was the benefit before the Thunder Horse Army factory could produce high-performance sniper rifles. For Charlotte, this order was definitely a reward and support order. It was of great significance. If he directly rejected Sherborne, this order might fly away. Moreover, he couldn't go back and modify the machine to produce high-performance sniper rifles. He had already invested $1 billion in the military factory. He couldn't just let that money sit there and do nothing, right? What's more, the new engineers and workers also needed to be paid. They also needed to buy insurance and housing fund. This was also a huge expense. Boss, sure, are you trying to tempt me? Xia Lei said half-jokingly. He had no way of rejecting Sherborne's order, but he did not express his stance immediately. Instead, he probed, "Tell me, what do you want me to do?" Sherborne smiled. "There's no danger in this mission. You can complete it on the way." "You can do it." Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have guessed what mission Sherborne wanted to talk about. "You have to save people, but you can't come back after you save them," Sherborne said. "Tang Yuyan will bring a few experts back. Long Bing and Tang Buchuan will also support them, so you don't have to worry about this at all. What you have to do is to stay and dig up what's inside the ancient city." "Okay, I promise you." This was what he was going to do. Now that he had earned an order for a pistol, Charlotte agreed without hesitation. Sherborne stared at Charlotte. "Do you know what to dig up?" Charlotte smiled. "Don't forget that Peaceful and I are very good friends. I saw her in that tribe. She told me, but I don't know much. I only know that I need to use that compass to find the location that needs to be excavated." If he pretended that he didn't know anything, it would be a low-level and unnecessary mistake. What kind of person was Sherborne? He was a big secret agent. It was not smart at all to play tricks in front of him. Moreover, Tang Yuyan also knew some things. There was no way to hide it. If that was the case, it was better to tell the truth. Sure enough, a smile appeared on Sherborne's face. "You're right. We really need that compass. You were the one who repaired it, so you must know how to use it. Remember, no matter what, no matter how much it costs, you have to complete this mission. Also, you have to bring all the things that you dig up back home." "No problem." After a pause, Charlotte asked tentatively, "CEO Sher, can you tell me more?" Sherborne's expression became serious. "You just need to complete the mission. As for what those things are and what they are used for, you don't need to know." Sure enough, that was the answer. Charlotte also gave up and didn't continue to probe. "Okay, I know what to do. What do you need? Just tell me. As long as it is related to the mission, I will definitely satisfy you." Charlotte thought for a moment and said, "To complete this mission, we must have a good relationship with the White Hun tribe. In order to save people, I have promised them to build a small hydroelectric power station. In addition, I will give them some free household appliances, such as rice cookers and water heaters. I have asked my assistant to buy these things, but it is difficult to transport them to that place. CEO Sher, can you find a way to transport these things in?" Sherborne said, "No problem. First, transport the things to Pakistan and then fly them in from Pakistan." Charlotte was a little worried. Afghanistan's airspace is almost completely controlled by the U.S. military. Can it be transported in? The U.S. military is not omnipotent. You don't have to worry about this. Just wait for the equipment to be received. Charlotte secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If he had to transport the equipment to the White Hun tribe to build the hydroelectric power station by himself, he didn't know how much time and cost it would take. With Sherborne's words, he was relieved. This was the benefit of having a strong country. To do such a thing, having a strong motherland as his backing, was actually a feeling of pride. The two continued to talk about the details of the operation. The military transport plane landed at the military base on the border of New Delhi. In the military base, Tang Buchuan provided a set of traditional Afghan clothes for Charlotte, Big Moon Taya, and Sairami. After the three changed into it, the makeup artist from 101 Innings did their makeup for them. Charlotte's skin was dyed yellow, and there were many wrinkles on his face. He also had a thick beard. After wearing a turban, he looked like an Afghan uncle. Big Moon Taya and Sairami's makeup was a little more complicated. The makeup artist added age to them and made them uglier. After putting on the traditional black robes and turban of Afghan women, the two women only had their eyes exposed. If someone had designs on them and lifted their veils, they would also lose interest after seeing their old and ugly faces. Big Moon Taya and Sairami's horses were also returned to them, as well as their AK-47s. However, they were all hidden in their luggage. Charlotte received the most equipment. In addition to his sniper rifle, he also received some reconnaissance and assassination equipment. These equipment turned him into the 007 of 101 innings. In addition, there was also equipment for communication, 2 satellite phones, and a few spare batteries. With these communication equipment, he could communicate with his country from the White Hun tribe without worrying about power or signal. When everything was ready and they were about to set off, Long Bing called Charlotte to the side and warned him, "Be careful. Although we're fully prepared, you can't let your guard down. Especially after Tang Yuyen left with those experts, you should stay in that tribe alone. You must take good care of yourself. Don't lose your life there." Charlotte was a little touched. He nodded and said, "I will. Take care of yourself too. Don't play with your life too much. Staying alive is the most important thing." Long Bing smiled faintly, but her smile only flashed for a moment before it disappeared. "By the way, I'll tell you something about Shintu Tianyin. Do you want to know?" Charlotte smiled bitterly. "Go ahead. She's already back in the country. Her project with the God Domain Group hasn't been cancelled. After leaving the hotel that night, she called you 3 times, but you didn't pick up. It's good that she's fine. I'll talk to her when I get back. I owe her an explanation." Charlotte still felt a little guilty. After all, he suspected that he had used Shintu Tianyin to steal the sword of Attila. Long Bing curled her lips slightly. "You're really thoughtful. Is there anything you want me to tell her?" Charlotte thought for a moment and shook his head. "No. Then you can go." Xia Lei led the horse away. Long Bing seemed to want to say something, but she swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue. A moment later, 3 horses set off from the military base. They galloped all the way out of China's border and entered the Wakhan corridor. In fact, Charlotte had suggested entering Afghanistan by plane, but Sherbourne was the first to reject his suggestion. All the airports in Afghanistan were closely monitored by the U.S. military. There were also countless intelligence agents operating in the airport. If they were discovered, the operation would fail prematurely. No one could bear the consequences. It would take some time to travel by land, but it was relatively safer. The part of the plan to transport the hydropower station equipment by air also required extremely careful planning and preparation time. It was not something that could be transported by air. In the barren desert, Sairami and Big Moon Taya galloped on their horses, with Charlotte chasing after them. Sairami turned around and waved at Charlotte. "Xia, let's have a race. As long as you catch up with me, I'll be your woman." Charlotte shook his head vigorously. "Then I'll chase after you. If I catch up with you, you'll be my man?" Charlotte was speechless. Big Moon Taya slowed down and rode side by side with Charlotte. "Xia, who's that old man?" Charlotte thought for a moment before saying, "A big shot. If you still want to ask, I can only tell you that his identity is equivalent to the director of the CIA. Do you understand what I mean now? You're quite honest. What did you guys talk about on the plane?" "The matter of the hostages returning home, and the matter of building the hydropower station for you. He was opposed to it, but I insisted again and again, and he finally agreed." Charlotte said with a smile, "It won't be long before you can use electricity. You can use electricity to cook, use electricity to boil water for bathing, and in the cold winter, you can even sleep on electric blankets." "Wow. Siarami shouted happily. Sia, can you buy some ricochet bombs for those old women in the tribe? I want to give them to them. Their men are really too pitiful. Charlotte's vision darkened and he almost fell off the horse. Chapter 332. Compared to other parts of Afghanistan, the Wakhan corridor was actually a very safe place, because it was just a narrow corridor area, deserted and uninhabited. Santa Ida armed forces would not be active here, and the U.S. military would not fly planes here to bomb worthless targets. There were only a total of more than 10,000 Tajiks living in the entire Wakhan corridor, and they were nomads. As long as they did not provoke them, they would live in harmony. In short, it was a peaceful world. Because they had the experience of crossing the Wakhan corridor, they were familiar with the terrain and knew the route, so the return trip to Afghanistan was very smooth and much faster. In just 5 days, they crossed the Wakhan corridor and entered the interior of Afghanistan. During these 5 days, the three of them did not encounter the slightest trouble, no attacks, no interrogations, not even bad weather. At night, the three of them set up camp in an oasis to rest. The oasis was very small, with a very small pool of water, and the pool was covered with poplar and haloxylon trees. The moonlight shone on the poplar forest and the pool of water, and the little silver gleams flickered, appearing quiet and mysterious. After laying out the blanket, the three of them gathered together to eat some dry food and drink some water. It's really good. Last time I just passed by here. This time I want to take a bath. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Shalami took Charlotte's hand and said enthusiastically, Sia, come take a bath with me. I promise you will never forget the feeling of taking a bath in the desert for the rest of your life. You go take a bath first, I'll take a bath later. Charlotte declined. Shalami was so enthusiastic and unrestrained that he, as a man, felt shy and embarrassed. Come with me. Shalami shook Charlotte's arm like a spoiled little girl. If someone peeps, you can help me drive away the peeping person. Charlotte laughed and said, This is the desert, where would there be people? There are no people with snakes. What if a snake bites me? Shalami continued to shake Charlotte's arm. I'm most afraid of snakes. They are long, soft, and slippery. If they wrap around me, oh, I'm scared just thinking about it. Charlotte, the great Moontia said slowly, what nonsense are you talking about? You're the best snake catcher in our tribe. Last month, you even caught 20 snakes, roasted 15 of them, and put 5 of them in someone's bed. Do you really want me to say all these things? Chieftain. Shalami stamped her feet in dissatisfaction. The elder Moontia ignored Sialami's dissatisfaction and said, Sia, look after this place. Silami and I will go take a shower and then you can take a shower. Charlotte nodded. Okay, no problem. Sharami, let's go. Aren't you afraid of snakes? I'll go with you, I'll help you drive the snakes away. Big Moontia said. Shalami pursed her lips, Chief, I want to catch a snake, you don't understand. The 2 white Xiongnu women walked towards the lake, whispering to each other as they walked. They looked like a pair of sisters who loved to quarrel. Charlotte watched the 2 women walk away. They passed through a low and sparse forest of haloxylon thistle, then took off their clothes at the edge of the lake, and went into the water to take a bath. The moonlight was white, they were also white, but the water was sky blue. The scene was extremely beautiful. The water rippled, and their curves also swayed and rippled. Sometimes they looked like undulating hills, and sometimes they looked like round moons. Big moons, small moons, dazzling moons. The 2 bathing women were about 30 meters away from him, but to him, who had a visual range of more than 4,000 meters, wasn't this the same as the 2 women bathing right under his nose? Shalami is really something. At such a young age, she's actually better than her chieftain. She's really amazing. She's so bad, she might become a woman like a vixen in the future, right? While admiring and comparing, a strange thought emerged in Charlotte's mind. If he had to choose a woman to take a bath with, he would choose Shalami without hesitation, not Elder Moontia. Elder Moontia was too scheming, and only had the tribe in her heart, while Shalami was too simple, and he felt very relaxed when he was with her. However, with Elder Moontia around, he couldn't take a bath with Shalami. I've already tried very hard to build a good relationship with Elder Moontia, and she also behaved very friendly. After returning to the tribe this time, my plans should be able to be realized. Wait, something's wrong. Not knowing why, Charlotte's thoughts suddenly became active, and he thought of a place that he had neglected. I helped the White Xiongnu tribe find the sword of Attila, and Shalami asked to give it to me as the most precious gift. Although this matter seemed to be a farce, Elder Moontia's reaction was very calm. She flatly refused, and didn't care about Shalami and my feelings at all. Along the way, she always prevented Shalami from getting close to me. I actually didn't have the idea of getting Shalami, and even if she allowed me, I wouldn't have done that. But she always guarded against me. If she really regarded me as the most precious guest of the White Xiongnu tribe, why would she do that? The reason was very simple. If Elder Moontia had regarded him as the most precious guest, she wouldn't have prevented Shalami from being with him, and wouldn't have obstructed and guarded against him at every turn. Since she did that, it meant that she didn't trust him. If there wasn't even trust, how could they cooperate? Thinking about this, Charlotte's brows immediately furrowed. His line of sight once again shifted to Elder Moontia and Shalami in the pool of water. The moonlight was soft and white, and the women under the moonlight were also soft and white. Elder Moontia and Shalami were arguing about something, and their argument added a trace of disharmony to this beautiful scene. Charlotte's heart stirred, and his left eye twitched lightly, locking onto the lips of the two women. In the pool of water, Shalami crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her already astonishing breasts protruded forward, giving off an exaggerated sense of shock. She pouted her lips and said with dissatisfaction, "Chief, Xia is a very good person. He has taken good care of us along the way. Do you remember when we were attacked by the U.S. Army? He fought against them alone and let us escape first? Now he has helped us retrieve the sacred relic, the sword of Attila. Without his help, we would never be able to retrieve our sacred relic in this lifetime. Just based on these two things, he is not only the most distinguished friend of our tribe, but also the hero of our tribe. A beauty matches a hero. Is it wrong for me to want to be with him?" This sentence was reasonable, except for the last sentence. But without the last sentence, it wouldn't be the style of childish face. Tia furrowed her brows. "Is your brain only filled with men's stuff? Stupid! I have already told you, except for him, I can give you any man you want, no matter how many. Only he can't, our tribe can't get involved with him." "Why?" "He is the target of the U.S. Army. I don't know why, but this is Afghanistan, we can't go against the Americans. If we get involved with him, the tribe may become the target of the U.S. Army's attack. Do you want that? Then why did you let him build a hydropower station for us? There won't be a hydropower station." "What do you mean?" "Don't ask about these things. From now on, don't talk too much. Will you let those China people go? I have my own decision on this matter, don't ask." "All right, I won't ask and I won't talk. From now on, I am a mute. You are the chief, you have the final say in everything." Shalami sank into the water angrily. She was like an ostrich. As long as she buried her head in the water, she would have no worries. Big Moontia glanced in Charlotte's direction, but the night was hazy, and she could only see a blurry scene. She could not see Charlotte at all. But even in her dreams, she didn't expect that Xia Lei could see her eyes clearly even though she couldn't see him. Big Moontia's eyes seemed hesitant, and also a little sinister. Xia Lei's heart sank when he saw the look in her eyes. The return to Afghanistan this time had been smooth, but he did not expect that it was just a superficial phenomenon. Big Moon Tia actually did not plan to build a hydropower station in the tribe, and she did not even plan to release Tang Yuyan, Peaceful, and the other China experts. Then, her promise to allow him to freely dig in the ancient ruins for a day would probably not be fulfilled. What was the chief trying to do? Charlotte's heart suddenly tensed up, filled with worry and anger. He had paid the price of friendship with blood, but what he got in return was betrayal. A few minutes later, Big Moon Tia and Shalami climbed out of the pool of water, put on their clothes, and returned to the camp. Shalami's face did not show the slightest bit of happiness. She pouted and did not say a word. She seemed to be carrying out Big Moon Tia's order to speak less, or perhaps she was also angry at Big Moon Tia. Big Moon Tia, on the other hand, had a smile on her face. She said to Charlotte, "Xia, we have finished bathing. You can go take a bath. After we leave here, we have to speed up. You won't have a chance to take a bath even if you want to." "Okay, I'll go take a bath too." Charlotte got up and walked to the pool of water. When he arrived at the edge of the pool, Charlotte first used his left eye to observe the area around the pool. After confirming that there was no one hiding nearby, he took off his clothes and jumped into the water. The water was very cold and very clear. Charlotte popped his head out of the water and quietly looked in the direction of the camp. As he looked, he saw Big Moon Tia take out the thermal imaging night vision device that Innings 101 had given him from his luggage. She then used the device to look in the direction of the pool of water. Charlotte moved his gaze away and dived into the water. The thermal imaging night vision device could penetrate walls and see warm-blooded animals hidden behind walls, but it could not penetrate the cold water to see the people underwater. Charlotte crouched in the water. His left eye's vision penetrated the calm water and looked in the direction of the camp again. At this time, Big Moon Tia took out the sniper rifle that he had modified from his luggage and raised it to aim in his direction. "She wants to kill me." Charlotte was shocked and angry at the same time. He had already obtained the sword of Attila and a lot of money. If he killed him, he could also avoid the threat from the Americans. This seemed to be Big Moon Tia's motive. Burn the bridge after crossing the river. Shalami suddenly stood up from her blanket and reached out to grab the sniper rifle in Big Moon Tia's hand. "Chief, what are you doing?" Shalami said angrily. "Xia is our tribe's hero. You can't do this." "I can do anything for the tribe," Big Moon Tia angrily rebuked. "Get out of my way." "I won't. We White Hun don't do such things. What you're doing is wrong." Shalami stubbornly refused to let go. Great Moon Tia suddenly slapped Shirami's face, but Shirami didn't let go. Instead, she kicked Shirami to the ground, and then pointed the muzzle of her sniper rifle at Shirami's chest. "Do you believe that I won't kill you?" Chapter 333. There was not the slightest trace of fear on Shirami's face. "I believe you, but I'm not afraid. I'm right, the great Hun King is right beside me, and he's looking at you. If you want to kill me, then kill me." Attila the Hun had been dead for more than 1,000 years, and Shirami was naturally referring to the sword of Attila. A trace of hesitation flashed in Elder Taya's eyes. If she killed Shirami with the sacred relic just beside her, it would go against her beliefs. "Get up and shut your mouth. Don't say anything when Xia returns." Elder Taya put away her sniper rifle. As she spoke, she glanced at the place where Charlotte was bathing. However, apart from a hazy swamp and a thistle forest, she could not see anything else. In such an environment, it was almost impossible for her to kill Charlotte in one shot. "Chieftain, can you not kill Xia?" Shirami looked at Elder Taya with pleading eyes. "Who said I wanted to kill him?" "Then what did you just do?" "I wanted to injure him, and then—" "Forget it, you wouldn't understand even if I told you. Just keep your mouth shut and don't care about anything else." Elder Taya put the sniper rifle back into Charlotte's luggage. "If you don't want to kill him, then what do you want to do?" "Shut up. You idiot, he'll be back at any time. Elder Taya fiercely rebuked Sirami. A trace of anger flashed in Sirami's eyes, accompanied by an ominous glint. However, it only flashed for a moment, and Elder Taya did not notice it at all. She was a sharpshooter of the White Hun tribe, and was the bravest in every battle. She had killed at least 80 if not 100 people. She herself was a ferocious beast in human form, and no matter who threatened her, it was actually a very dangerous thing to do. Naturally, the argument between Elder Taya and Sirami did not escape Charlotte's eyes. Although it was somewhat difficult to read Pashto using lip language, his brain had an incredible analytical ability. Therefore, he was still able to interpret the conversation between the two women. Although not every word was 100% accurate, the meaning was close to the mark. Elder Taya put away her sniper rifle, which meant that he was temporarily out of danger. He climbed out of the water, put on his clothes, and walked back to the camp. As he approached the campsite, he bent down to pick up a stone from the ground. At close range, his chances of hitting Tyra's head with a rock was much higher than Tyra hitting him with a pistol. There was no other reason than he could be faster. The great Moon Tia did not take out her gun. Seeing that Charlotte had returned, she smiled. "Xia, how do you feel?" Charlotte smiled and said, "Not bad, the water is very cool. It's a blessing from the heavens to have a place like this in the desert. Let's rest. We'll continue our journey in 4 hours and strive to reach the Ika tribe by noon tomorrow," Tia said. "Okay, you guys sleep first. I just took a shower, so I'm not sleepy. I'll stand guard first." Charlotte returned to his blanket and took out his sniper rifle to wipe it clean. With a gun in hand, he was not worried that Tia would do anything dangerous to him. The great Moon Tia did not make any unusual movements. She slept wrapped in a blanket and clothes. Silami looked at Tia and then at Charlotte. She seemed to have something to say, but after hesitating for a long time, she could not say a word. Shelami's reaction fell into Xia Lei's peripheral vision. Although she was still silent at the moment, he didn't blame her in his heart at all. Not only did she speak up for him, but she even risked her life to stop Tia from shooting at him. For her to do this for him, it was actually very good. After all, she was also a member of the White Hun tribe. He could not expect her to betray her chief and the White Hun tribe. Time passed quietly, and Charlotte's thoughts were also fluctuating. All signs indicate that Tia will definitely not continue to cooperate with me. She will not release Tang Yuyen and Peaceful, and she will not allow me to enter the ancient ruins to dig for treasures. She will even betray me to the Americans in exchange for the tribe's peace and greater benefits. It is easy for me to kill her now, and I can also eliminate the hidden danger of being betrayed by her. However, if I kill her, what about Tang Yuyen and Peaceful? Will Silami fight with me? Can I still enter the ancient ruins to dig for treasures? Thoughts were fluctuating in Charlotte's mind, and he could not calm down. He could not kill her, and if he continued to follow Tia, he would be in a very dangerous situation. At that time, he would not even be able to guarantee his own safety, let alone rescue the hostages and dig for treasures. He had never encountered such a situation before, and it gave him a headache. Tia's eyes quietly opened a slit, and she observed Charlotte's movements. Although her movements were not visible, Charlotte still saw it. Charlotte stood up quietly and looked around, pretending to observe his surroundings. Tia of the Great Moon Empire seemed to be relieved. Her lips curled into an inconspicuous sneer. After a while, Silami got up from her blanket and walked towards Charlotte. "Xia, you go rest. I'll stand guard. It hasn't been that long. You should sleep a little longer," said Charlotte. "I can't sleep. You go to sleep." Silami hugged her AK-47, and her face was gloomy. Charlotte pretended not to know and tentatively asked, "Silami, who made you unhappy?" Silami glanced at Tia and coldly snorted. Tia suddenly woke up and interrupted Silami. "What are you guys talking about?" "Nothing." Selami said unhappily. Charlotte smiled and said, Selami just woke up, and she wants to take over my post. Tia said, forget it. It seems that we are not sleepy. Let's just continue on our way. This way we can return to the tribe earlier. Chief. Selami wanted to say something, but stopped. She seemed to be worried that something bad would happen. Tia coldly glared at Selami. Don't talk nonsense. Go get the horses. Let's get out of here. Selami angrily went to get the horses, and as she walked, she kicked the sand with her feet. Tia's eyes became colder and colder. There was no doubt that she felt that Selami was provoking her dignity. As the chief of the White Hun tribe, what she couldn't tolerate the most was someone provoking her dignity. Charlotte said with a smile, Selami is still a child. It's normal for her to have a childish temper. A smile also appeared on Tia's face. I also think that she is very cute, but sometimes she really gives people a headache. Alright, let's not talk anymore. Pack up and continue on our way. Just then, Selami came with 2 horses, hers and Charlie's, but she did not bring Tia's. Selami handed the reins of Charlotte's horse to Charlotte and said in a very angry tone, Chief, I can't lead 3 horses. You can lead your own horse. No problem. Tia walked towards the poplar tree where her horse was tied. Just as she turned to leave, Charlotte caught a trace of anger in her eyes. Selami had obviously angered her. Charlotte said with some worry, Selami, why did you anger your chief? She is your chief. If you anger her, you will be in trouble in the future. Humph. Selami spat on the ground. I respect her and listen to her in everything, but she has never thought about me. Every time someone invades the tribe, I rush to the front, but she still treats me like a child. I tell you, if it weren't for me, she would have been killed by her competitors. I got rid of her competitor, so she became the chieftain, but now she treats me like a fool. There was actually such a hidden story? Charlotte's heart was full of curiosity. Just as he was about to ask, Tia had already returned with the horse. He also vigilantly closed his mouth. Let's go. Tia mounted the horse. She glanced at Selami with a threatening look in her eyes. Obviously, she had heard Selami's complaints. Charlotte and Selami also mounted the horse, and then followed Tia around the oasis, running towards the Ika tribe. Last time, the 3 of them passed by the Ika tribe, which was a Pashtun tribe with a population of tens of thousands, and had a tribal armed force of several hundred people. Tia had a good relationship with the chief of the tribe, Abu Tulu. She easily passed through the territory of the Ika tribe, and also obtained some supplies. This time, on their return to the White Hun tribe, they still had to pass through the Ika tribe, but Charlotte's heart was already full of anxiety. If Tia got support in the Ika tribe and had help, if she wanted to attack him in the Ika tribe, then he would be in a very dangerous situation. Damn, I can't kill her, and it's dangerous to follow her. How did I encounter such a troublesome thing? Charlotte's heart was full of anger. He even wanted to turn the horse around and go back to his mission, but then he thought of Tang Yuyen and Peaceful, who were still trapped in the White Hun tribe. He thought of the 101 innings agents who had sacrificed themselves to carry out the mission, and his heart could not be hardened. I have to think of a way. I have to solve the problem before entering the Ika tribe, but what can I do? Charlotte was desperately trying to think of a solution. Selami slowed down and walked side by side with Charlotte. She lowered her voice and said, Sia, go back. Don't think about your friends. Under the moonlight, Selami's doll face was full of anxiety and anger. Charlotte knew what she was anxious about and angry about, but he pretended not to know. He grinned and said, I'm not the kind of person who gives up on friends. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're facing. Selami anxiously glared at Charlotte. Her anxious and angry look had a different kind of seductive flavor. Looking at her charming face that was still childish, and the amazing size of her chest, A light suddenly flashed in Charlotte's mind, and a solution that was not a solution came spontaneously. I want to be with you. Charlotte smiled, his eyes gentle. Aren't we dating now? You let me go. Don't you want to be with me? A blush immediately appeared on Shirami's doll-like face. Of course I'm willing. You're my hero. Other than you, I don't want any other man. But. She looked at Tia's back in front of her with hatred in her eyes. Charlotte reached out and held Sialami's hand. This was a gentle gesture to show goodwill, and it was more effective than any words of love. Sialami also appeared very gentle, but it only lasted for a few seconds. When Charlotte let go of her hand suddenly reached to Charlotte's buttocks. Charlotte froze for a moment, but this was Sialami's style. He did not expect her to change. This was also Charlotte's solution. If there was any other way, he would never use such an old-fashioned strategy like the beauty trap. However, he had no other choice, right? Tia of the Great Moon Empire turned around and scolded, "Shilami, hurry up! Keep up!" Sialami retracted her hand from Charlotte's buttocks and said bitterly, "Coming." She whipped the horse and chased after them. A smile quietly appeared on the corner of Charlotte's mouth. Chapter 334. The light of dawn dispelled the darkness. In the morning light, the three of them rode in the direction of the Ika tribe. After riding for the whole night, they did not rest for more than 2 hours, mainly to let the horses rest. The three of them did not sleep. Soon, the three of them ran out of the wasteland and entered a dirt road. Along the way, there were also fields planted with poppies. At this time of year, the poppies were flourishing and green. The Ika tribe is 10 kilometers ahead. Big Moon Tia pointed ahead. The Great Moon Tia pointed to the front. We'll rest in the Ika tribe before continuing on our journey. We'll be back in 3 days. That's fast. Charlotte sighed. Chief of the Great Moon Empire, please release my friends immediately after returning to the tribe. No problem, I'll release them when we get back. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Big Moon Tia's mouth. Salami, on the other hand, looked very anxious and worried. Charlotte rode his horse closer to Big Moon Tia and reached out to her. Big Moon Tia was stunned for a moment, but she still reached out to shake hands with Charlotte. Just as they shook hands, Charlotte skillfully pulled Big Moon Tia in front of him. Then, the handshake turned into a hug. At that moment, his other hand touched Big Moon Tia's collar. The two separated. Charlotte smiled. Our friendship will last forever. Go! Big Moon Tia cracked her whip and urged the horse to move forward. Charlotte urged the horse to catch up. Siarami bit her cherry lip. Should I tell him the truth? He's a fool, a fool. At this time, Charlotte suddenly turned back and smiled at Siarami and waved. Siarami was slightly stunned. Then, she clamped her horse's abdomen and urged the horse to catch up. The 10-kilometer journey passed quickly, and a town came into view. The town, the villages scattered around the town, and the poppy fields that covered the mountains and plains. Charlotte had been to this place before. It was the Ika tribe. Before the three of them could enter the town, they were stopped by the armed men from the Ika tribe. The Great Moon Tia identified herself, and the armed men from the Ika tribe let them go and brought them into the town. The three of them were brought to a courtyard. The walls of the courtyard were very high, and there was a security net. Behind the walls was a very spacious dam, and behind the dam was a 2-story building. The chief of the Ika tribe, Abu Tulu, lived in that building. The last time he came, Charlotte and Shirami just waited outside and didn't go in. Stay outside and wait for me for a while. I'll go in and have a talk with Chief Abu Turu, and then I'll come out, Tia said. Well, we'll wait for you outside, Charlotte said. Shilami and Patya looked at each other. The two women's eyes collided, and the atmosphere seemed to be a little more tense. Great Moon Tia didn't speak to Shirami. Instead, she glanced at Shirami before entering the courtyard. She seemed to have made some kind of decision, so her whole body seemed very cold. The gate to the courtyard was closed, and the situation inside couldn't be seen. However, this didn't faze Charlotte at all. His left eye twitched slightly, and the thick courtyard gate disappeared from his field of vision. He saw the armed man leading them to a room. "Xia, if I die, will you be sad for me?" Shalami suddenly said. Charlotte said, "What nonsense are you talking about? You're still young, and your life has just begun." "I'm serious. I want to know the answer. Tell me." At this moment, Shalami seemed very mature and different from her usual self. Charlotte was silent for a moment before saying, "Yes, I definitely will. If you die, I'll be very sad. I'll also hold a memorial for you. Every year on the 15th day of the 7th month, I'll burn money and clothes for you." Shalami blinked her big eyes. "What do you mean by burning money and clothes every year on the 15th day of the 7th month?" "It's a custom from where I come from. It's a ceremony to honor the dead," Charlotte said. Shalami laughed. "Wow, there's also a ceremony. Then you can't lie to me. You must burn it for me." It seemed like a heartless laugh, but Charlotte felt a kind of sadness and determination emanating from her. She seemed to have sensed something and was mentally prepared. Elder Taya entered a room on the first floor of the building. The armed man from the IKA tribe who led the way closed the door and stayed at the door to wait. Charlotte's gaze shifted to the door of the room. He secretly increased the intensity of his X-ray vision, and the door quietly disappeared from the sight of his left eye. Elder Taya was bowing to an old man, who smiled and invited her to take a seat. The old man's head was wrapped in a turban, and his beard was at least a foot long. His face was thin and long, and his eyes were deep, giving off a very intelligent feeling. This old man was the chief of the IK tribe, Abu Tulu. Charlotte's gaze locked on the two of them. At the same time, he took out two miniature receivers and stuffed one into his ear, and the other into Shalami's ear. "What are you doing?" Shalami looked at Charlotte, puzzled. "Don't ask, just listen," Charlotte told her. Elder Taya took a seat and started talking with Abu Tulu. Their conversation was also transmitted to Charlotte and Shalami's ears through the receiver. "Dear Chief Abu Tulu, I'm back. Thank you for the help you gave me before. I won't forget your help. When autumn comes, I'll send you 100 sheep and 2 young female slaves," Elder Taya said. "That's really good. Our two tribes are not far from each other, so it's natural for us to take care of each other. How long do you want to stay this time? If you need anything, just let me know. I'll have someone prepare it for you," Abu Tulu said with a smile on his face. 100 sheep was a very large fortune for a poor tribe. What's more, there were also 2 young female slaves, which he knew belonged to him. Although slavery was the darkest system in human history, it had not been completely eradicated in today's era of global economic integration. It still existed in poor and backward places. "I need you to do me a favor." "What do you want me to do for you?" "I have a Chinaman with me, a disobedient subordinate. I want you to help me take them down. Also, give me a phone number to contact the Americans," Elder Taya said. Abu Tulu stared straight at the great Moon Taya. "Who is that Chinese man? Why do you want to hand him over to the Americans?" Elder Taya said, "You don't need to know that. If you help me with this, I'll pay you $100,000. $100,000? Abu Tulu was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. $100,000. You just need to order your people to take down that Chinaman and my subordinate. This is your territory, so it's not a difficult task. He's just a Chinaman, so you don't have to worry about causing any trouble." "Sounds good, but I want to know, why don't you do it yourself? After all, he's just one person. He's very powerful, otherwise I wouldn't have given you $100,000. Make your decision. If you don't want to, I'll bring him back to my tribe and take him down there," Elder Taya said. Abu Tulu laughed. "I can see that not only is that Chinaman very powerful, but you don't have the chance to take him down. Also, he's a big trouble. You don't want to take him back to your tribe, do you? You don't want to. 200,000 US dollars. Deal. Elder Taya said again, however, I have a condition. Kill that disobedient subordinate of mine. No problem, but I'll decide how your subordinate dies. A strange smile appeared on Abu Tulu's face. There probably weren't many men in this world who would be willing to kill Silami with a single shot, right? At the gate, Charlotte withdrew his gaze. Elder Taya, that bitch wants to kill me. Silami was furious to the extreme. Xiale suddenly kissed her on the lips, but it was only for a moment. After blocking her voice, they separated. He pulled Silami to the warhorses on the side of the wall. 2 armed men from the Ika tribe stood next to the 3 warhorses. One of them scolded, "What do you want to do? Ride out for a stroll?" Charlotte let go of Silami's hand and walked quickly. Every second was precious now. One of the armed men said, "Who allowed?" Before he could finish speaking, Charlotte suddenly attacked. He rushed forward and punched the armed man's carotid artery with a nail fist. The other armed man reacted and hurriedly removed the AK-47 from his shoulder. But his movement was still too slow. Charlotte's figure flashed and appeared beside him. He also punched the man's temple with a nail fist. The 2 armed men from the Ika tribe fell to the ground almost at the same time. Silami's mouth was agape. She had actually planned to make a move. She had already taken out the dagger she had hidden on her belt, but just as she took it out, Charlotte had taken care of the 2 targets in less than 2 seconds. "Get on the horse." Charlotte flew up onto the horse. Silami did not hesitate this time. She also flew up onto the horse's back. Then she clamped her legs on the horse's belly and urged it to follow Charlotte out of town. In a room in the small building, Elder Taya got up and said, "Chief Abu Tulu, we can act now." "That's easy." Abu Tulu clapped his hands. The armed men from the Ika tribe who were guarding the door opened the door and stood quietly at the door, waiting for the chief's instructions. "Get a few men to take down the 2 men at the door," Abu Tulu said. "Yes." The armed men from the Ika tribe turned and walked to the door. A sneer appeared at the corner of Elder Taya's mouth. "Silami, don't blame me. I'm doing this for the tribe. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being willful. You shouldn't have fallen in love with that Xia, and you shouldn't have challenged my authority." The armed man who carried out the order quickly walked to the door. He reached out and opened the door, but there was no one outside. He looked to the side of the wall and saw the 2 armed men from the tribe who had been knocked out. "They've run away!" the armed man who carried out the order shouted. "What?" Elder Taya rushed out of the room, her face extremely gloomy. Abu Tulu also ran out and roared, "Immediately gather everyone and bring those 2 back for me." A few minutes later, the armed men from the Ika tribe came out in full force. Chapter 335. On the muddy road in the countryside, there were pickup trucks, off-road vehicles, horses, hundreds of people, and hundreds of guns, but they were only chasing 2 people. Among so many pursuers, the one rushing at the forefront was a woman, Big Moon Tia. She was undoubtedly the most anxious one among the hundreds of people, because Siarami was riding her horse. The horse was not important. What was important was that the horse had the sword of Attila in its luggage. This was Big Moontia's mood at the moment. She could not wait to cut off Sirami's head. Because they ran a few minutes in advance, Charlotte and Sirami kept a distance of almost 1 kilometer from the pursuers. "Well done. I wanted to remind you to ride Big Moontia's horse just now, but you didn't need me to remind you to ride her horse." Charlotte's voice was very loud as he urged the horse to run wildly. Sirami giggled, "I've always been very smart." Charlotte thought that this was really hard to say. "Go up the mountain." Sirami urged the horse to leave the muddy road in the countryside and ran towards a mountain peak along the path of the poppy field. Charlotte followed her and left the muddy road in the countryside. On flat ground, the horse certainly could not outrun those off-road vehicles and pickup truck. If they kept running on flat ground, they would be caught sooner or later. From this point of view, Serene did not seem to be a woman with big breasts and no brains, at least not at this time. A machine gunner on a pickup truck fired in the direction of the two people. The range of a heavy machine gun was longer than that of an ordinary sniper rifle, and its power was also greater. Although it was a blind shot, the number of bullets was very terrifying. As they fired one by one, the ground around Serene and Charlotte was suddenly opened up, and a lot of bullets whizzed over their heads. The scene was very thrilling. Charlotte leaned sideways on the horse's back, raised his gun, aimed and pulled the trigger. With a bang, the machine gunner a kilometer away suddenly had half of his head blown off. This kind of marksmanship immediately brought a lot of pressure to the armed men of the Ika tribe, but it also stimulated the blood of these people. They let out strange cries and shouted. An armed man of the Ika tribe moved from the horse to the pickup truck, pushed away the sniper rifle that was lying on the machine gun, and prepared to continue shooting. Whoosh! A bullet flew over, and the armed man who was supposed to replace the machine gunner flew out of the back of the pickup truck before being run over by an off-road vehicle. But he couldn't feel the pain because the moment he flew out, a sniper rifle bullet had already shattered his heart, and in that instant, he was already dead. No one dared to jump into the pickup and act as a sniper anymore. The road that could be used for vehicles was still extending forward, but the target had already slipped away from the side path. The pickup trucks and jeeps couldn't continue driving, and at least half of the hundreds of pursuers stopped. The only ones who could catch up were the cavalry on horseback. The one leading the cavalry was still Taya. The elder Moon Tia did not dare to stick her head out. She stuck her upper body tightly to the horse's back, because she knew very well how powerful Charlotte's marksmanship was. However, she did not know that Charlotte had already locked on to her. It would only take 2 bullets at most to kill her. Big Moon Tia has caught up. Do you want me to kill her? Charlotte said. No, leave her to me. Serene's face was full of anger. Not only does she want to kill me, she also tacitly allowed that old pervert Abu Tulu to humiliate me. I want to duel with her. Didn't she always say it was for the tribe? She always thinks of herself as the chieftain. I want to take everything away from her. I am the chieftain. All right, I'll leave her to you. The corner of Charlotte's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. The elder Moon Tia's betrayal and failure to keep her promise was a very bad thing for him, causing him to be passive in every aspect. The reason was very simple. The hostages were still in the White Hun tribe, and the things that needed to be excavated were still in the White Hun tribe. If he killed the elder Moon Tia, then the hostages would die, and he wouldn't have the opportunity to excavate anything. Faced with such a terrible situation, his response was not the usual one. That was to express goodwill to Serene and let her know the true colors of the elder Moon Tia. Then, he would support Serene and replace the elder Moon Tia. The White Hun tribe was an almost primitive tribe. Its inheritance of power was definitely not through election, but through a duel between the most prestigious. He had helped the White Hun tribe recover the sword of Attila, and this sword, which symbolized the supreme power of the Hun king, was in the hands of Serene. The prestige and influence she possessed was self-evident. Just by relying on the sword of Attila, she had the capital to challenge the elder Moon Tia's position. Once Serene became the chieftain of the White Hun tribe, what hostages couldn't he rescue, and what things couldn't he dig? Let alone digging for a day, even if he had to dig for a year with a forklift, Serene wouldn't have any objections. She would even help him clean the forklift. This was Charlotte's response plan, and it had been going smoothly so far. The hillside was in front of him, bare and full of rocks, with very few trees. Charlotte was most satisfied with this kind of terrain, because with an open field of vision, he alone was an insurmountable front line. As long as he occupied a high point, he could snipe any target that dared to rush up. At the foot of the hillside, Charlotte and Selami unloaded their luggage, drove the horses away, and climbed up the hillside with their luggage. When the two climbed to a height of about 350 meters, the elder Moontia arrived at the foot of the hillside with her pursuers. At this time, Charlotte had already chosen a sniping point. In Selami's hand was a rifle equipped with a grenade launcher. This gun was also the weapon prepared for Charlotte by 101 innings. Not only this gun, but the two also had many powerful advanced weapons in their luggage. The armed men of the Ika tribe quickly launched a charge. In their view, no matter how powerful Charlotte and Selami were, they were only two people. They had an absolute advantage in numbers, and it was only a matter of time before they caught or killed the two. Bang! There was a gunshot on the hillside, and the most active young armed man who rushed to the front was shot in the head. His brain and blood splattered all over the ground. Da-da-da, bang bang bang. The armed men of the Ika tribe fired back, but at a distance of more than 300 meters, the guns in their hands could not pose a threat to Charlotte and Selami. Blow them up with rockets. A tribal armed leader commanded his men. A middle-aged rocket launcher carrying a Soviet-made 105mm rocket launcher appeared, but before he could fire the rocket, a bullet flew from above the hillside and opened a fist-sized hole in his forehead. Fuck! Who the hell is that guy? The tribal armed leader was shocked and angry. A tribal armed man went to pick up the rocket launcher. As soon as he picked up the rocket launcher, a grenade fell from the sky. Bang! There was an explosion, and rock fragments and shrapnel flew in all directions, immediately overturning several people. But this was just a bad beginning. In less than a second, the rocket also exploded, and there was a sudden burst of fire at the foot of the hill. People within a radius of more than 20 were affected, and many people were killed and injured by the shrapnel. Naturally, it was Selami who fired the grenade. She was the sharpshooter of the White Hun tribe, and the most powerful warrior. On such an occasion, she certainly would not let Charlotte fight alone. The grenade launcher in her hand did not have a range of more than 300 meters, but her position was on the hillside, and she had a commanding position. She only needed to tilt the grenade launcher and launch the grenade above the heads of those people. At the beginning of the battle, only a few minutes had passed, and the Ika tribe suffered heavy losses. However, these people did not retreat, but used the rocks distributed on the hillside to climb up, shortening the distance. At the same time, the tribe's snipers also joined in, using sniper rifles to confront Charlotte. Charlotte and Selami fought and retreated, while retreating to higher ground, and at the same time sniping targets that could pose a threat to him and Selami. The Ika tribe's snipers naturally became the focus of Charlotte's elimination. As long as the position was locked, the Ika tribe's snipers became his targets, and they fell one by one. The battle went on endlessly. Hundreds of people couldn't kill two people. Such a scene could only appear in Hollywood movies, and it was almost impossible to appear in the real world. But it had appeared here. Xia Lei was like Rambo in First Blood, James Bond in 007, or Jason Statham in Special Human Trafficker. He was completely like the lone hero in Hollywood movies, invincible and undefeatable. Abuchalu finally arrived with reinforcements. When he saw the corpses lying in disorder on the hillside, his eyes were spitting fire, but the target of his anger was not Xia Lei or Shalami, but Taya of the Great Moon Empire. He roared at the Great Moon Tia, "What are you hiding? Who is that Chinaman?" "A secret agent of China. I told you in advance." The Great Moon Tia braced herself and said. She was now in a terrible situation. "Bastard! You didn't tell me he was so powerful." Abuchalu roared at the Great Moon Tia. "How much have we paid for you? How are you going to solve it? I want the $200,000 now, right now." The great moon Tia was speechless. She promised Abuchelu $200,000 because she was sure that she could get more bounty from the Americans. But now that Charlotte was still alive and kicking on the hillside, the Americans' bounty was hanging in the sky. How could she have $200,000 to pay Abuchelu? Abuchelu said angrily, "No money? Then you go up and catch those two for me." Dozens of armed men from the Ika tribe then pointed their guns at the great moon Tia. "Chief Abuchelu, you can't do this to me." The great moon Tia panicked. "They are trapped on this hill, and their ammunition will eventually run out. When that time comes, we will be able to catch them. I promise, I won't give you a penny less, no, I'll give you $300,000. "Screw your $300,000. Where are they?" Abuchelu had already lost control of his emotions. "Go up, or I'll kill you." Bang bang. Someone fired 2 shots at the feet of the great moon Tia, urging her to go up the hill to catch the 2 men. "You will regret this." The great moon Tia spat on the ground hatefully. "I will bring my men to make you pay." "Humph!" Abuchelu snorted coldly. He did not believe that the great moon Tia could return to the White Hun tribe alive. The great moon Tia carried an AK-47 and climbed up the hillside. Her speed was not fast, and she was very careful. Chapter 336. The armed men of the Ika tribe stopped attacking, and the battlefield quieted down for the time being. There were no gunshots. Elder Tia braced herself and climbed up. In front of her was Charlotte, whose marksmanship was godlike, and behind her were the ferocious armed men of the Ika tribe. She was caught in the middle and had no way out. However, she did not regret it. Until now, she still believed that Charlotte would not shoot her. Not for any other reason, but because the hostages were still in the White Hun tribe. "Charlotte would not dare to kill me. I only need to hold Sirami down. As long as I can convince Sirami to surrender, Charlotte will not be able to hold on by himself. He will surrender sooner or later. At that time, I will kill Sirami and hand over Charlotte to the Americans." "I did not fail, I just encountered a little trouble," Elder Tia thought in her heart. Charlotte did not shoot her, and she became more and more determined in her heart. Later on, her speed also increased. In the end, she did not even look for cover. She raised her head and climbed up openly. Elder Tia had been moving in Charlotte's line of sight. Indeed, if he wanted to kill her, he would have shot her long ago. To him, shooting Elder Tia was just a matter of pulling the trigger, but he did not do so. He had promised Sirami that he would leave Elder Tia to her. "She is really bold. Does she think that we would not dare to shoot her?" Sirami was filled with anger. She fired a few shots at Elder Tia, who was already close to her. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A few bullets flew over and hit the rocks beside Elder Tia. Sparks flew everywhere. The elder moon Tia bent over for a moment, but quickly stood up. She shouted, "Sirami? What are you doing? Why are you running away?" Sirami also stood up. She spat on the ground. "If you want to kill me in Xia, can I still stand there and wait for you to kill me?" "Who said I want to kill you? Is it Xia?" Elder Tia said loudly. "That is him lying to you. Why would I kill you? You are the sharpshooter of our tribe. I value you very much. I also treat you as my sister. Don't listen to his nonsense, I will never kill you." Just as Silami was about to say how she knew that Tia wanted to kill her, Charlotte gave her a look, and she immediately shut her mouth. After escaping to this place, she already admired Charlotte from the bottom of her heart. She would do whatever Charlotte said. Tia, on the other hand, thought that her persuasion had worked. As she walked forward, she said, "Shalami, if you put down your weapon now, I won't hold you accountable. We'll still be good sisters like before." After a pause, she said loudly, "Xia, you misunderstood me. I don't know why you ran away. Let me tell you, if you surrender now, I won't hold you accountable. The deal we made before is still valid. Don't you want to save your friend?" Put down your weapons. I will make it clear to the people of the Ika tribe. They will not hurt you. On the hillside, Charlotte sneered. I really misjudged you. Your chief is actually such a shameless woman. Even at a time like this, she still doesn't repent and wants to kill us. Let me kill her. Silami couldn't hold it in any longer. The more Tia said, the more disgusted she felt. Poor Tia still didn't know that Charlotte had already placed a listening device on her. Her secret conversation with Abu Tulu had already been heard by Silami. Charlotte. Tia stopped about 20 meters away from the two of them. She slowly placed the AK-47 in her hand beside her feet and shouted, Let's talk. Charlotte stood up and said coldly, What else is there to talk about? The great moon. Tia went straight to the point. Don't you want to save your friend and the few Chinese people? Return the things to me. I will immediately contact the people in the tribe to release your friend and those few people from China. Charlotte laughed. The White Hun tribe doesn't even have a mobile phone. How are you going to contact the people in the tribe? Even at this time, you are still lying. I feel embarrassed for you. Tell me, why are you doing this? Aren't you afraid that I will go back and kill all the hostages? Tia didn't explain, but gave an even stronger threat. You are hopeless. You are not fit to be the chief of the White Hun tribe, Charlotte said. Shalami also threw away the gun in her hand, and a sharp dagger appeared in her hand. She walked towards Tia. Chieftain, this is the last time I'll call you chieftain. Duel with me. Tia suddenly realized something. She sneered and said, Duel? Do you think you are qualified to duel with me? You want to take away my position? Let's talk about it when we return to the tribe. Now I order you to take down Charlotte. Yes. This was Sialami's response. Tia suddenly bent down and grabbed the gun. Bang! A bullet suddenly flew over. The AK-47 that Tia had placed on the rock was immediately hit and sent flying. If you try to grab a gun again, the next bullet will be for your head. Charlotte's voice was very cold. Tia didn't dare to act rashly. She didn't doubt that Charlotte would really shoot her. Along the way, the number of people who had died in Charlotte's hands numbered at least 100, if not 100. She had seen Charlotte kill without batting an eyelid. At this time, Charlotte suddenly shouted down the hillside, People of the Ik tribe, listen up. I will double the $200,000 that Tia promised to give you as compensation. This money will be paid by the new chief of the White Hun tribe, Silami. Silami was stunned for a moment. She hurriedly said, I don't have any money. $400,000. Even if you sold me, you wouldn't be able to get that much. Charlotte shrugged and had nothing to say. He felt that Silami's brain was sometimes very sharp, but sometimes it was her chest that was sharper than her brain. Fortunately, her voice wasn't loud. The people down the hill couldn't hear her at all. Soon, a response came from down the hill. It was Abu Tulu's voice. What will you pay with? Charlotte whispered. Silami said, Tell them that you will pay with a bank transfer. If they have the equipment, you can pay at any time. But I don't. I'll pay you. In the end, Charlotte didn't say the word, idiot. Hearing that it was Charlotte who was going to pay, Silami suddenly became confident and shouted, I will pay with a bank transfer. As long as you have the equipment, you can pay at any time. You are Chieftain Silami. We are friends. You wait, I'll send someone to get the equipment. Abu Tulu's voice was equivalent to acknowledging Silami's identity. Elder Moon Tia's face was completely devoid of blood, and her eyes were terrifyingly cold. Silami walked towards Elder Moon Tia. Her entire aura had changed. The young girl with a childish face was like a vigorous she-wolf, preparing for the battle of the Wolf King. Although she didn't show her teeth, her aura wasn't the least bit inferior to Elder Moon Tia's. Charlotte secretly held a throwing knife in his hand, ready to act at any time. Although he had promised Silami to let her handle Elder Moon Tia, As long as Elder Moon Tia threatened Sialami's life, he would not hesitate to act. Sialami needed a fair duel because it was the tradition of the White Hun tribe. However, he didn't need it. He only needed Sialami to sit on the position of the White Hun tribe's chieftain. Sialami stopped in front of Elder Moon Tia and coldly looked at her. "Draw your knife and fight me." Elder Moon Tia hesitated for a moment, but finally pulled out a dagger from her belt. She pulled out the dagger very slowly, as if she was very hesitant. But when the dagger was in her hand, she suddenly stabbed towards Sialami. Her speed was so fast that it was impossible to defend against it. Sialami hurriedly dodged sideways, but the dagger still grazed her chest, causing her to bleed a little. Sometimes, having a large chest could become a burden. Charlotte was also startled, and the dagger in his hand almost flew out. Elder Moon Tia seized the opportunity to attack, not giving Sialami a chance to counterattack. Her offensive was very fierce, and the dagger in her hand was aimed at Sialami's heart. After Sialami dodged, she smoothly slashed towards Sialami's neck. Every time she attacked, she wanted to take Sialami's life. Sialami crouched down and avoided the dagger in Elder Moon Tia's hand. Almost at the same time when Elder Moon Tia's attack missed, her dagger slashed across the outside of Elder Moon Tia's left knee. Cloth and ligaments were cut together, and blood immediately gushed out from Elder Moon Tia's left leg. Elder Moon Tia hurriedly retreated, and Sialami rolled on the ground, brushing past her right side. When Sialami brushed past her, the dagger in her hand swiftly cut open the ligaments in Elder Moon Tia's right leg. The battle was not over yet, but Charlotte had already relaxed a lot. He could already see that Sialami's battle strength was far above Elder Moon Tia's. Her previous sorry state was only due to Elder Moon Tia's sneak attack. The two women fought on the hillside. Elder Moon Tia's legs were injured, and her agility was greatly reduced. In the blink of an eye, several more wounds appeared on her body, and blood soaked her clothes. Her expression became more and more sinister. "Kill me and you'll be executed." Elder Moon Tia's hair was disheveled, and she seemed to have gone mad. "I'm the chieftain. You're not. If I kill you, I'll be the chieftain." Sialami pressed forward, and the dagger in her hand was like a venomous snake, flickering left and right, drifting erratically. Every time she paused, a gush of blood would inevitably appear on Elder Moon Tia's body, creating a wound. After a few exchanges, Elder Moon Tia knelt on the ground and supported herself with her right hand, which was holding the dagger. Sialami circled behind Elder Moon Tia and pressed the dagger in her hand against Elder Moon Tia's neck. "Sialami, don't. I was wrong, I admit defeat." While speaking, Elder Moon Tia quietly raised her right hand, and the tip of the dagger pointed towards Sialami. Charlotte was about to shout a warning, when Sialami suddenly pulled back her hand, and blood immediately spurted out from Elder Moon Tia's neck like a fountain. Sialami kicked Elder Moon Tia's corpse to the ground, and then spat on it. "You can only use this trick once. I've always told you that I'm very smart, but you always ignore this point. You bastard!" Charlotte was speechless. Chapter 337. With the death of Tia Elder Moon, all the problems had been solved. Sialami had become the chief of the White Hun, and Charlotte was not worried about the safety of Tang Yuyen, Peaceful, and the China experts. Also, with the permission to explore the ancient ruins, wouldn't Sialami meet his requirements? Now there was only one problem, and that was the Ika tribe. At the bottom of the hill, Chief Abu Tulu had already climbed up the hill with a dozen people. The tribal armed men were all armed with guns, and each of them looked very vigilant. There was also a tribal armed man holding a piece of white cloth with a branch. It seemed to be a truce to Charlotte and Sialami. No wonder they were so nervous. In the battle just now, Charlotte and Sialami had already scared them. "Abu Tulu has so many people with him, what if they attack us?" Sialami said with some worry. Xiaolei, on the other hand, appeared very relaxed. Although I've never interacted with Abu Tulu, I can tell that he's a greedy person. Also, your two tribes are not far from each other, and the IKA tribe also relies on you, right? Starting a war is not good for anyone. What's more, I will give them $400,000, which is enough to buy peace. Sirami smiled, showing her teeth. I believe you, but if they dare to attack you, I will kill them all. Her smile pulled at the wound on her chest, and some blood came out of the wound. The towering spherical peak, the bright red wound, it had a bewitching beauty, but also made people feel distressed. And the snow-white skin that was exposed from the torn cloth was full of reverie, and people could not help but speculate about its panoramic view. Xia, when the negotiation is over, help me bandage the wound, okay? The wound was still bleeding, but Sirami laughed heartlessly. Her melon head seemed to be imagining that scene. No problem, Charlotte said with a smile. He had to please her now. They were both chiefs of the White Hun tribe. Compared to pleasing the scheming Big Moon Tia, pleasing Sirami was too easy for him. At this moment, Abu Tulu had already brought his men to a very close distance, about 20 meters away. Abu Tulu and his men stopped. He and his men were afraid of Charlotte and Shalami, and were unwilling to go any further. We're here. Come down and talk. Abu Tulu shouted to Charlotte and Sirami. Shalami was about to go down when Charlotte pulled her back and whispered in her ear, You stay here and stay alert. I'll talk to them. Shalami's face was full of worry. But, Charlotte interrupted her. I know you're worried about my safety, but it's dangerous for the two of us to go together. Also, do you know how to pay for it? Shalami's face suddenly turned embarrassed, and she didn't insist on going with them. Charlotte picked up Taya's AK-47, slung his sniper rifle on his back, and walked toward Abu Tulu. The reason why he picked up Taya's AK-47 was because in close combat, the sniper rifle's firing rate was simply not enough. As Charlotte walked down, Shalami held a rifle with a grenade launcher and stared vigilantly at the armed men of the IKA tribe below, ready to shoot anyone who made any abnormal movements at any time. Therefore, although it seemed that there were two of them and they were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, both of them were sharpshooters and didn't fear Abu Tulu and his men. Charlotte stopped in front of Abu Tulu, very calm. Abu Tulu looked at Charlotte, his eyes burning. You're the most courageous person I've ever seen. Aren't you afraid that I'll go back on my word and kill you? Charlotte said indifferently, What will you get if you kill me? Just a corpse. Also, don't forget that Chief Shalami is a sharpshooter of the White Hun tribe. If you make a move on me, she'll be the first to kill you. Chief Abu Tulu, do you want to give it a try? Abu Tulu glanced at Shalami in the distance and said, You've killed a lot of our good men. I can't bring them back to life even if I kill you. Their children, wives, and parents still need to live, so I won't say much. Pay up. An armed man of the IKA tribe came in front of Charlotte with a laptop and a satellite signal receiver. Unlike the other armed men, he wore glasses and looked like a cultured person. I've paid, but you won't let us go. What should I do? Charlotte said. Abu Tulu's eyes suddenly flashed with anger. You don't believe me? Charlotte said in a lukewarm tone, Chief Abu Tulu, you just brought hundreds of people to chase us. Do you think I can believe you? After all, I've paid a lot of money. 400,000 US. Your tribe can't earn that much money from growing poppies in a year, can it? Bastard! How dare you talk to our chief like that? An armed man angrily rebuked Charlotte. Abu Tulu quickly pressed down the armed man's hand and didn't let him raise the muzzle. Under such circumstances, if anyone were to raise the muzzle, not to mention the 400,000 US, they would probably lose their lives as well. Tell me, what do you want? Abu Tulu suppressed the anger in his heart. I only have one condition, Chief Abu Tulu, said Charlotte. Swear in the name of Allah. Abu Tulu didn't seem to expect that Charlotte's condition would be like this. He was slightly stunned and then readily swore in the name of Allah. Charlotte quickly completed the transfer and transferred 400,000 US dollars to Abu Tulu's account. Seeing the new number added to the account, a smile appeared on Abu Tulu's face. Chinese, tell me, who are you? Great Moon Taya has told you some things about me, said Charlotte. But what I want to tell you is that I'm a businessman and I'm going to invest in the White Hun tribe. In the future, I may cooperate with your tribe and let you make more money. As you can see, I'm a straightforward person and I like to solve problems with money. What I want to tell you is that being friends with me will earn you more than 400,000 US dollars. Ha ha ha, we're already friends. Abu Tulu hugged Charlotte and said, How about I invite you to my tribe as guests? Next time. We're still in a hurry to go back to the White Hun tribe. Charlotte tactfully refused. Okay, next time then. Abu Tulu waved his hand and walked down the mountain with his men. For the IKA tribe, many people had died in this battle, but human life was the most worthless thing in this land. So many people had died, and they got 400,000 US dollars. The IKA tribe must still be angry in their hearts. Naturally, many people were unwilling, but they were facing a terrifying sharpshooter like Charlotte. Thinking of the previous battle, they did not have the determination and courage to continue to chase after Charlotte and Shalami. Money and strength, these were the things that Charlotte relied on to solve the problem. A moment later, Abu Tulu left the foot of the mountain with his men. They took away the dead armed men. Charlotte looked at the horses that were gradually fading away. His whole body was completely relaxed. But at this moment, a piece of clothing suddenly flew over and covered his head. The clothes had the smell of blood, sweat, and fragrance. These smells were mixed together, and it was not a good smell, but it was not a bad smell either. Smelling this smell, Charlotte knew that the new chief's upper body must be naked. Gasp! Shalami's gasp came from behind. Charlotte took off her clothes and turned around. Sure enough, Shalami's upper body did not even need a centimeter of cloth. She was bare and white like a freshly baked bun. The huge size of her chest was exposed to the sun, like two piles of white snow under the sun, giving people a shocking feeling. The wound was in the middle of the right chest. It was not very deep, but it was about 5 centimeters long. Will it leave a scar? Shalami was very worried about this, and she frowned, looking very funny. Charlotte comforted her, it shouldn't be. Sit down, I'll help you deal with it. Shalami sat on a rock. Charlotte took out a first aid kit from his luggage. He first wiped the blood around the wound with gauze, and then stitched the wound with a needle and thread. In the process, it was inevitable to touch something that should not be touched, and sometimes it was even necessary to stabilize it. Shalami was a lively and active person. Don't move. If you move, I can't stitch it for you. Won't it be fine if you catch it? It's so big, how can I catch it? Stupid, can't I use 2 hands? Then which hand should I use to stitch your wound? If he had a choice, Charlotte would rather fight with the people of the IKA tribe than to stitch Shalami's wound. It could have been done in a few minutes, but it took Charlotte a quarter of an hour to finish it. After stitching the wound, Charlotte pressed a hemostatic bag on her chest, and then wrapped a bandage. Finally, he threw her coat on her face. Put it on, we have to find the horse. I'm a wounded person, you help me put it on. Charlotte took the coat and put it on Shalami, but Shalami mischievously burrowed into his arms and kissed his lips. Charlotte was slightly stiff, but soon became engrossed. On this land, one could die at any time, so what was the point of indulging? He also knew that Shalami's kiss was tantamount to opening an intimate relationship between him and her, and he also needed this relationship, so no matter what Shalami asked of him, he would satisfy her. After a long time, the two separated, and Shalami said with a smile, "You're mine, now I'm the chief, no one can stop us from being together." A bitter smile appeared on the corner of Charlotte's mouth. His goal had been achieved, but his heart was full of sadness and guilt. After the mission was completed, he would eventually have to leave this place. How could he and her have a happy ending? Wait for me, I still have something to do, and then we'll go find the horse. Shalami got up and walked over to Tissia's body. As she walked, she pulled out the dagger that killed Tissia. Charlotte looked at her curiously. What do you want to do? Cut off her head. Charlotte was shocked on the spot. What? Instead, Siarami had a carefree look on his face. Without the head of Taya the Great Moon, I can't be the chieftain. This is our tradition, so don't worry about it. If you find it disgusting, then don't watch it. I'll go find the horse. Charlotte turned around and left. He really couldn't accept such a thing. Chapter 338. The men in the tribe began to slaughter pigs and sheep in preparation for the ceremony of the new chief's ascension. Charlotte rummaged through the house, and finally found an old book in a drawer. The cover of the book was made of animal skin that had been treated with antisepsis, and the leather was covered with a layer of grease. Except for the severe wear and tear on the corners, the rest of the book was still in good condition. The night fell, and the ceremony and celebration were all over. Charlotte had drunk a lot of the tribe's homemade horse milk wine, so he felt a bit lightheaded and lightheaded. 2 female warriors of the tribe helped him into a room, put him on the bed, and helped him take off his shoes and socks. Charlotte didn't want them to serve him, but he couldn't dissuade the 2 strong and stocky women. And when the 2 women helped him take off his shoes and socks, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All right. Charlotte hung up the phone. Siarami walked to Charlotte's side, held Charlotte's hand, and said with a smile, "Let's dance together to celebrate." Siarami and Charlotte returned with the sword of Attila and the death of Taya of the Great Moon Empire. These 2 incidents were like 2 bombs exploding in the tribe, causing a violent shock. As the tribe's sharpshooter and the most courageous person in every battle, Siarami had a high reputation among the tribe's warriors. These tribal warriors agreed that Siarami should take over the position of the new chief according to tradition. There were also people in the tribe who supported Taya of the Great Moon Empire, raising doubts and opposing voices. Both sides couldn't hold on for a while, and the smell of gunpowder was very strong. The one who fired the gun was Siarami. Child Face H had an unhappy expression on his face. "I've already allowed you to leave, why don't you leave? If you don't leave, then stay and feed the sheep." This. Charlotte's imagination was magnified infinitely, but there was no content in it. His thoughts were all swallowed up by it, and he couldn't understand it no matter how hard he thought. Charlotte's vision pierced through the wall, and then he was horrified to find that the house had been surrounded by the tribe's women. The women were talking and laughing, and scrambling to occupy the vantage points by the window and the door, as if they were waiting for a good show to happen. This seemed to be a good suggestion. Having a helper was better than having no helper at all. Charlotte was a little hesitant to agree. Sharami closed the door with her heel and staggered towards Charlotte. The satellite phone suddenly rang. The door opened and Shirami walked in. Her footsteps were unsteady as she muttered, "I'm not drunk. You old women want to get me drunk? Ha ha. If I wasn't in a hurry to be a bride, I would have drunk all of you to death." This was indeed a very simple dance. Stomping, jumping, and spinning. It was easy to learn. It was like the Tibetan Guzhuang dance. Soon, the tribe's female warriors joined in, jumping and shooting at the sky. The deafening gunshots rang out incessantly, and boobs of all sizes shook non-stop. As the only man participating in the dance, Charlotte felt really strange. He was even worried that the waves formed by those women would suddenly surge towards him and drown him. At the crucial moment, the conversation Charlotte had secretly recorded with the bug on Big Moon Tia's body played a huge role. Big Moon Tia, as the chief of the White Hun tribe, intended to sell out Charlotte, who was retrieving the sacred item for the White Hun tribe, to the Americans. She also acquiesced to the IKA tribe's people humiliating and then killing Sherami. When the conversation between Big Moon Tia and Abu Tulu was exposed, it set off another uproar in the tribe. The voices of doubt and opposition were gone, and Sherami naturally became the new chief. After a while, Peaceful and a few China experts were gathered, ready to leave the tribe with Tang Yuyan. Bang bang bang! Peaceful looked back at Charlotte, her eyes filled with reluctance. Footsteps came, and Charlotte was suddenly awakened. He quickly put the ancient book back in its place, and then quickly returned to the bed to lie down. The sudden sound of gunfire broke the silence, and it also scared Peaceful. She quickly let go of Charlotte and went to see what was happening. "It's okay, I'll be careful," Charlotte said. "You can learn it once you learn it. It's very easy." Sherami danced with Charlotte. It was Long Bing who called, "Put Yu Yen on the phone." The words on the cover of the book were in the ancient Han language, and Charlotte didn't understand a single word. He was curious, and he opened the book. The paper of the book was also very old, and the color was yellow, but the words and pictures were still clear. Unfortunately, the words in the book were also in the ancient Han language, and he didn't understand them. "Then I'll stay and finish it with you. This is my specialty, and I can help." After the two tribal female warriors left, Charlotte looked around the room. It wasn't Charami's room. It was much bigger than Charami's room, and it was also much more beautiful. Then, he found some clothes that Big Moon Tia had worn in the room, as well as some things that she had used. This was Big Moon Tia's room. Outside the room, the sound of footsteps could be heard, like that of sheep passing by. Charlotte used the satellite phone to report the progress of the mission to Sherborne. "Let's go." Tang Yuyan reacted quickly. She grabbed Peaceful and turned to leave. Suddenly, his eyes locked onto the picture of the palace. His left eye twitched. A picture hidden in the tiles was magnified, and it entered his vision. He saw the picture hidden in the tiles, and he was shocked. Charlotte handed the satellite phone to Tang Yuyan. "It's Long Bing. She's looking for you." Xia Lei was embarrassed by Peaceful's hug. He noticed that Tang Yuyan was looking at him strangely, as well as the white Han women around him, who were also looking at him strangely. In this tribe, everyone knew he was the man of the new chief, Sherami. Peaceful was hugging him, so the women were curious about their relationship. There were many white Han women watching, but Charlotte wasn't worried that they could understand Chinese. He said, "I'm going to stay and finish the job you guys haven't finished yet." Peaceful felt wronged, but she thought what Charlotte said made sense. She felt conflicted. "Charlotte, be careful. Tang Yuyan will take people and leave the White Han tribe. They will wait for our plane at the designated location. Leave a satellite phone and keep in touch. Once the mission is completed, retreat immediately." It was Long Bing's voice. Xia Lei thought about it and felt relieved. Shelami was now the chieftain, so of course, she could no longer live in the shabby little house from before. She would naturally live in the former chieftain's house, which was also a symbol of her status. Charlotte smiled and said, "What dance? I don't know how to do it." "Okay, I'll get ready. I'll be at the designated location in 6 hours, Tang Yuyan said. She then handed the satellite phone to Charlotte. "Take care. I'll see you at home." Charlotte looked at him. Then, Charlotte saw a hand-drawn map in the book. He looked at it and was surprised to see that the hand-drawn map was a map of the ancient ruins. There were walls, palaces, and streets. There were also warehouses where weapons were stored, as well as places where soldiers lived and trained. Tang Yuyan suddenly came forward and gave Charlotte a tight hug. "You're not leaving?" Hearing Charlotte tell her he wasn't leaving, Peaceful looked at Charlotte with shock. 3 days later, in the White Han tribe, imagination was powerful and plentiful, but reality was miserable and bony. That was why he was still in bed. She was a delicate woman, and Xia Lei was a head taller than her. She seemed smaller in Xia Lei's arms, and the feeling of a helpless little bird was especially obvious. Beep, 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 beep. At that moment, Xia Lei really wanted to turn into a bird and fly out of the roof. Promise me you'll come back alive, Tang Yuyan whispered in Charlotte's ear. Then, she let go of him. I have to go now. If I don't, I won't be able to make it to the place where the plane will pick us up. Tang Yuyan looked at Charlotte. Her eyes looked like she didn't want him to go. Along the way, the two of them had been through life and death. Some embarrassing things had happened. Those were precious memories that were hard to forget. Tang Yuyan took a few experts with her and left the river. They slowly faded out of sight. You have to come back. Peaceful suddenly gathered her courage and crawled into Charlotte's arms. Her soft hands hugged Charlotte's waist tightly. But how can I not worry about you being here alone? Big Moon Tia's head was placed in a wooden coffin. An old horse was buried with her. The Hun were a people who lived on horses. After the Hun died, they buried their horses with them. It was a symbol of their identity and status. Although Big Moon Tia had been killed by Salami, and her head had been cut off, her funeral was very grand. I can stay and help you. After we finish that job, we can leave together, Tang Yuyan said. Charlotte looked at Tang Yuyan. Unfortunately, he couldn't hear Long Bing's voice on the satellite phone. He could only hear Tang Yuyan's voice. Charlotte waved his hand and told her to leave. Charlotte had a wry smile. This is what your godfather wants. Get ready. Take Peaceful and leave. Long Bing and your brother will pick you up. As for me, don't worry about me. After I finish the job, I'll go back. Tang Yuyan took the satellite phone and talked to Long Bing. Next to her, Tang Yuyan frowned. Then, she had a wry smile on her face. She had hugged Charlotte earlier. Now, the archaeology female doctor had done the same thing. She suddenly remembered the lyrics of an old song. How many good sisters do you have? Don't be silly. Go back. I'll be fine. I'll come find you when I get back. Charlotte's tone was much softer. The women in the tribe had gloating smiles on their faces. They obviously knew why the new chief was angry. The new chief only had one man, so how could she allow other women to hug him? No, you have to leave. This is an order from above. To save you, many people have died. Everything has been arranged. If you don't leave, the plan will be messed up. Do you want to get into trouble and have someone save you again? Charlotte's tone was very serious. Charlotte nodded. Yes, this is your godfather's order. Only I can do this. I have to do it. Charlotte came back to his senses. He nodded. The strong arms, the warm and soft pressure, and the fragrance made Charlotte a little nervous. He didn't know if he should reach out and hug her waist. The higher-ups want us to go back and you to stay? When Charlotte ended the call with Sherboran, Tang Yuyan said something. Her eyes were full of worry. The pattern was made up of 2 letters. E. Are you staying to finish the job that Peaceful and the others didn't finish? Tang Yuyan was very careful, so she guessed the right place. Chapter 339. Charlotte pretended to close his eyes, snoring sounds coming from his mouth. He pretended to be asleep, and even he himself thought that he was asleep. It was very realistic. However, Shalami came over and pressed him under her body without any regard for the consequences. His mouth was messy, his hands were messy, and his whole body was messy. In less than a minute, Charlotte couldn't pretend anymore. He opened his eyes and said, "You're drunk. Go to sleep." Sirami giggled and said, "Do I look drunk to you? You're pretending to be drunk?" Charlotte's jaw almost dropped to the bedsheets. "What's so good about wine? I want to drink you." Charlotte. Sirami held Charlotte's face, her eyes full of tenderness and honey. "Now no one can stop us from being together. You're mine, no one can take you away from me. My head is so dizzy. I think I drank too much. I'm going to sleep for a while." Pretending to be asleep failed. Charlotte began to pretend to be drunk. He closed his eyes again. Sirami pushed Charlotte angrily, but Charlotte pretended not to respond. She froze for a moment, then suddenly threw herself on Charlotte's body, peeled off Charlotte's clothes, and then rode on Charlotte's body. Charlotte also struggled, but Sirami was like a wild horse, full of wildness. He was also worried that he would hurt himself if he used too much strength, so he let her have her way. But once he let her have him, he had an angelic baby face that was still childish and innocent, but he also had a ruthless, devilish figure. Under the ravages of the female chief, Xia Lei's body first fell for her, and then he fell for her completely. He didn't care about anything else and let go. If they were together, then so be it. The house was also filled with strange sounds, sometimes high, sometimes low, and mixed with some messy dubbing, like the sounds of nature praising life. Outside the house, a large group of tribal women were chattering. Some of them peeked through the cracks of the door, some peeked through the bug holes on the wall, and some even rode on their sisters' necks to peek through the window. It was as if a superstar had come to the tribe to watch a concert. What a brave man! He's much stronger than the few idiots in my house. Sisters, do you think Shirami will walk with a limp tomorrow? What Shirami? Now you have to call him chief. Mom, Sister Shalami is crying. Did someone beat her? A little brat blurted out. Little brat, what do you know? Shalami is laughing, not crying. She's clearly crying, I want to see. Go, go, go. Little wimp, stay at one side. When you grow up, Mom will snatch a few men for you. Then, you will know whether Big Sister Shalami is crying or laughing. Really? Then I will grow up tomorrow, but I still want to see it. Scram. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was shooting into the sky. This night was destined to be a restless one. On this night, someone changed from a young girl to a woman, and someone changed from a fierce man to a dead dog. The first rays of dawn dispelled the darkness that enveloped the canyon, and the bright and beautiful sunlight gently illuminated this paradise. The forest was filled with a thin mist, making the forest look unreal. The river was sparkling, and Asian carp restlessly jumped out of the water, splashing onto the men washing clothes by the riverside. These formed a beautiful and tranquil picture, like a goddess from another world. Looking at Shalami, who had just climbed out of bed to cook, Charlotte's heart softened, and he felt a little guilty. However, Shalami's perky buttocks and enchanting back quickly dispelled his guilt. In the face of such a beautiful woman with a childish face, he couldn't pretend to be gentle. Shalami's walking posture was very strange, as if she was limping. Charlotte also got out of bed. I'll cook, you rest. Shalami looked back and smiled. It's nothing, it's just a knock on the foot. You rest for a while, I'll call you when it's ready. She suddenly remembered something, but if someone asks you, just say that you cooked. Charlotte nodded with a wry smile. In this tribe, it was always the men who waited on the women. Shalami was now the chief. If someone found out that she cooked for him, it would damage her dignity. Shalami went to the kitchen to cook, and Charlotte didn't go back to bed to catch up on his sleep. He dressed and went to the simple desk with a drawer. He opened the drawer, took out the ancient book, and continued to read. The latter part of the ancient book was also written in the ancient Xiongnu language, and there were some hand-drawn illustrations. Unfortunately, because he didn't understand the ancient Xiongnu language, he still couldn't decipher the contents of the book. Time to eat. Shalami came in with a black ceramic pot. Her eyes moved to the ancient book in Charlotte's hands, and then curiously asked, "What are you looking at?" This time, Charlotte didn't hide the book. He took the ancient book and walked over. "I found a book, probably left by Taya of the Great Moon Empire, but I don't understand the ancient Xiongnu language in it, do you? I know some, let me see." Shalami took the ancient book and urged, "Eat your breakfast while it's hot." Charlotte glanced at the ceramic pot, only to find that there were only a few cooked sweet potatoes, a few cooked potatoes, and a piece of bread. This was the tribe's breakfast. The chief ate this, not to mention the other clansmen. Xia Lei's heart ached at the sight of the food, and he felt a little upset. Seeing that Charlotte didn't move, Shalami said again, If you want to eat meat, I'll get someone to get some. For lunch, I'll kill a sheep for you. No, 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 this is good, coarse grain is good for health. Charlotte picked up a boiled sweet potato and gnawed on it. He was also a person who had lived a hard life. The food he used to eat at the construction site was not even as good as pig's food, but he still came here. He wouldn't dislike the food Shalami gave him because the tribe was poor. He was not the kind of person who despised the poor and loved the rich. Shalami looked at the ancient book and casually said, "This is our tribe's book. I heard my grandmother say that it records the history of our Xiongnu. You know, the great Xiongnu king Attila created a powerful dynasty. Although it failed, that period was our most glorious period. Besides history, what else does it say?" Shalami flipped to the back, and soon turned to the hand-drawn drawing of the ancient city. She looked at it for a long time before saying, "It also records the city occupied and built by our ancestors. See, this city is the place where we met, it's called White Horse Tomorrow City. Legend has it that there are treasures, but we dug many places but didn't find any. It turned out that the ruins of the ancient city used to be called White Horse Tomorrow City. It was really a strange name. What's next? What's next?" Shalami continued to flip, some big sacrificial activities and celebrations, as well as the description of some big people, princes, princesses and so on. Look at this. She pointed to a woman in the last few pages and said with a smile, "The legendary Princess Yongmei Zhu Xianyue. Listening to the name, you should have guessed that she, like you, is also a Han, right? Hee, my grandmother likes her the most, and often tells me stories about Princess Yongmei. Surnamed Zhu, isn't that the same surname as the emperor of the Ming dynasty? Moreover, she's a princess." Charlotte suddenly thought of the compass from the Ming dynasty. His brain also quietly became active, connecting all the characters, events, and key items together. His brain seemed to have drawn a coexisting relationship diagram of characters, events, and items, but the diagram was still very vague and could not be seen clearly. "Hey, why are you in a daze?" Shalami looked at Charlotte with a smile, as if she was looking at a cooked sweet potato, looking like she wanted to eat him. Nothing." Xia Lei came back to his senses and said, "What else does the book say?" "About this Princess Yongmei, that's right, and your grandmother, what stories did she tell you about this Princess Yongmei? Tell me, I want to know." "I'm hungry." Shalami pouted her small cherry mouth and said coquettishly. Although she was the most powerful sharpshooter of the White Hun tribe, killing people like flies in front of Charlotte, she was after all an 18-year-old girl, and inevitably acted like a spoiled child in front of Charlotte. Charlotte peeled a boiled sweet potato for her, and fed it to her as gently as he could. Inadvertently discovering an important clue, what Shalami knew was too important for him. Let alone feeding her, even waiting on her to take a bath was not a problem. Shalami smiled very sweetly, eating the sweet potato that Charlotte fed her, looking very happy. "Tell me quickly," Charlotte urged. "My grandmother." She didn't finish her sentence and unexpectedly choked. Charlotte quickly patted her chest to help her swallow. When he patted, the thing that was patted rippled exaggeratedly, creating a beautiful ripple. As a result, the relationship diagram in his mind became a picture of two circular objects, making him not know whether to laugh or cry. The book says that White Horse Tomorrow City was built by Princess Yongmei. It took 10 years for her to die in this city, but there is no record of her grave. The book says it's ominous, but no one knows. Why did Princess Yongmei come here to build a city? Charlotte's heart was very strange. Shalami shook her head. "I asked my grandmother the same question before. My grandmother said it was because of love. She fell in love with a prince of our Hun tribe, but in the end they couldn't be together. It's a sad and beautiful love story, but I don't believe it. The story of a princess and a prince is the most unreliable." Charlotte didn't think so. Many historical events, what is written in the history books is not necessarily true, because history is written by the victors. On the other hand, folk legends were not necessarily false, because many folk legends were actually the truth of historical events. Shalami, can you do me a favor, translate this book into Pashto, I want to have a look. Charlotte was not satisfied with Shalami's sloppy translation. He wanted to know more, he needed to find more clues. I hate reading books, but I can find someone to help you translate. Our tribe actually has literate people. Shalami said with a smile. Well, thank you, I'll feed you another sweet potato. Charlotte fawningly picked up a sweet potato. Shalami's big eyes were watery, and her voice was soft. No, I don't want this sweet potato, I want your one. The sweet potato in Charlotte's hand fell on his crotch. Chapter 340. Sunlight sprinkled on the road. Every ray of sunlight was like a dancing fairy, dancing among the trees, the water, and the people. Chief, are you walking with a limp? Your walking posture is so weird. A woman with a gun on her back greeted Sirami with a smirk on her face. Oh, I did accidentally hurt my foot. Sirami's face was slightly red. Chief, did you hurt your foot in the long grass? Go to hell. Sirami flipped out. Ha ha ha. A group of women laughed. A little girl ran over with a concerned expression. Sister Sirami, you cried for a long time last night. Did it hurt? Sirami's face turned even redder. She stared at the little girl, wanting to scold her, but she couldn't bear to. The women laughed again, very happy. When Taya was still the chief, they didn't dare to make such a joke with her. But Sirami was different. She used to be a clown in the tribe. Many women watched her grow up, so they dared to make such a joke with her. Charlotte naturally became the target of ridicule. Those women teased him, saying all kinds of things. He didn't like such jokes, but he didn't mind, let alone get angry. He felt that the women in the tribe had a kind of simple and natural aura, which made people feel close to them. After a while, Charlotte and Sirami rode their war horses, accompanied by several tribal women warriors, towards White Horse Tomorrow City. After solving the problem of Taya, Charlotte didn't need to build the hydropower station to explore the ancient city. In fact, he had exchanged a sweet potato with Sirami for this permission during breakfast. The horses galloped through the forest, and the mist gradually dissipated in the sunlight. The equipment will probably arrive in a few days, and then I'll build the hydropower station for you, Charlotte said loudly. He deliberately let the few tribal women warriors who followed Sirami hear his voice. In addition, I'm going to invest in you, so that you can live a rich life. Can we eat mutton every day? A female warrior asked. Charlotte laughed. Of course, not only can we eat mutton every day, but also beef, flour, and rice. Wow. Can I have some sanitary napkins? Poochie, Charlotte almost fell off his horse. Sia, in order to help us with the sword of Attila, you have already paid so much, we can't use your money anymore. Serene said to Charlotte. Charlotte smiled. I didn't spend it for nothing. You have to repay me. I plan to build modern breeding farms and clinics for you. In addition, I also plan to build a handicraft factory here. You guys will produce traditional handicrafts with high added value. I will help you sell them, and we will split the profits. What do you think? How much could he earn by selling handicrafts? He didn't really care about this small profit, but he didn't want Salami and the people here to think that he was giving them charity. Sure. Sharami was a careless woman. She didn't think too much about it. Charlotte's plan filled her with longing. Can I exchange it for a gun after selling it? But we are short on guns and ammunition. A tribal female warrior also said, yes, change to guns. Without guns and ammunition, we will be bullied by other tribes. We want to protect our territory and protect our people. We need better guns and ammunition. Charlotte thought for a moment and said, why wait until then? When I go back tonight, I will make a phone call and ask them to send you some weapons and ammunition by air. Really? That's great! Shirami shouted excitedly. Several tribal female warriors were also very excited. They looked at Charlotte with eyes full of respect. Charlotte had found the sacred sword of Attila for the White Hun tribe. He had become the man of the tribal chief. He was going to build hydropower stations, farms, breeding farms, and even send weapons and ammunition to the tribe. There was no doubt that the tribe had already regarded him as an indispensable member of the tribe. Bringing White Horse to the ruins of Tomorrow City, Charlotte whispered a few words to Serene. Serene then arranged several female warriors to guard the periphery, and then she led Charlotte into the ruins. This arrangement was obviously Charlotte's idea. He didn't want people to know what he was looking for. Of course, Serene was an exception. Putting aside the fact that he trusted Serene very much, just the fact that Serene was easy to fool, he didn't mind bringing Serene along to search for treasures. This seemed to be one of the cute things about childish Face H. After entering the ruins, Charlotte took out the compass from the Ming dynasty and walked forward in the direction indicated by the compass. This was the first time he used this compass, and his heart was filled with amazement. This compass didn't have a complex structure or electronic components, nor did it have a satellite support, but it could always adjust its direction with his steps, always pointing to the same place. It wasn't a compass, nor was it magical and exquisite like a compass. It's like a compass, I didn't notice it before. Serene looked very curious. Charlotte casually said, "It's not a compass, it's a compass from ancient times. It can guide me to the place where the treasure is hidden. With it, we can find the treasure." "I like it," Serene muttered. Charlotte laughed and said, "Why do you like it?" "It's because of it that we're together. I know, if it weren't for it, you wouldn't have snuck into my house at that time." Shilami seemed to still be brooding over the previous matter, and wanted to throw a tantrum. Charlotte put his hand around her small waist and said with a smile, "Don't be naughty, be obedient, and I'll give you a bath tonight." "Ha ha!" Shilami laughed. "You look like a serious person, but you're very bad inside." Charlotte's hand left her small waist, and patted her pert buttocks, not too lightly but not too heavily. A crisp "pa" sound rang out, and childish Face H's perky buttocks immediately rippled beautifully. The sound also echoed in the empty ruins, giving off a strange feeling. Serene coquettishly rolled her eyes at Charlotte, and then ran to a stone. Charlotte curiously asked, "What are you going to do?" "Go to the bathroom, you're not allowed to peek." Serene squatted behind the stone. Charlotte speechlessly looked at her, looking at the stone that was only 1 foot high. His mind couldn't help but have a question. Didn't she know to find a bigger stone? Such a small stone, and she still told him not to peek. Wasn't she deceiving herself and others? The sun was dazzling, the stone crouching in the grass, and the snow-white legs. In this vicissitudes and sacred ancient ruins, this picture didn't feel the slightest bit out of place. It was so natural, so beautiful and attractive, full of artistic elegance. "You're not allowed to peek," Serene rebuked, her baby face blushing. Charlotte shrugged and turned around. "Snake!" Serene screamed. Charlotte rushed over and nervously said, Where? Ha ha ha. I lied to you." Xiaolei suddenly recalled that Taya of the Great Moon tribe had once said that Shirami was an expert in catching snakes in the tribe, and that she liked to put the snakes she caught into other people's bed. He had forgotten about this in his haste just now. "You're not allowed to peek. Shameless. Don't tease me like this." Charlotte curled up the corner of his mouth, then raised his foot and gently kicked her butt. Serene grabbed a handful of grass and threw it at Charlotte. Passing through the rubble, Charlotte and Serene arrived at the center of the White Horse's Tomorrow City. In front of them was a large expanse of huge stones and incomplete statues. Its area was at least more than 1,000 square meters. Although there were only pieces of stones left, It was not difficult to imagine its majesty at that time. In Charlotte's mind emerged the map from the ancient book, and he soon determined that the ruins in front of him were the palace of the White Horse's Tomorrow City. He glanced at the compass in his hand, and the needle of the compass continued to point to the east. I don't want to discourage you, but I don't know how many treasure hunters have come to this place, with those strange treasure hunting instruments, but in the end they found nothing, and even became our slaves. We also dug it ourselves, but found nothing. What can the compass in your hand find? Serene was not optimistic at all. Charlotte did not speak. He continued to walk east with the compass in his hand. This time, when he walked 20 meters forward, the needle of the compass in his hand suddenly trembled. He immediately moved to the left and right and retreated. Once he left that area, the needle of the compass went straight down again, only pointing in that direction. Finally, he returned to the previous place, and the needle of the compass once again trembled uneasily. Charlotte carefully looked at the situation under his feet, and his brows suddenly wrinkled. Under his feet was the foundation of the palace, paved with huge stone tiles, and covered with a large number of stones, rubble and so on. The amount of earth on the ground was at least more than 1,000 square meters. And this was only on the ground, not including the underground. There was no doubt that this would be a huge project. Did you find anything? Serene came over and curiously looked at the compass in Charlotte's hand. Charlotte said, I'm not sure. Help me get the shovels, iron rods, and other tools on the horse. I'm going to dig here. Charlotte had already prepared the shovels, iron rods, and other tools in advance for treasure hunting. They were on the horse he rode. I'll give them to you right away. Serene turned around and ran to the place where the horse was tied. As soon as Serene left, Charlotte took out his satellite phone and made a call. Boss, sure, I've found the place. Charlotte went straight to the point. But the ground is covered with a large number of stones, and I don't know how deep I have to dig. This is a big project, and I'm afraid I need more time. Hurry up, it's not safe for you to stay there. Sherborne's voice was heard. What do you need? We've prepared everything in Pakistan, and we can airdrop it to you as soon as tomorrow night. Boss, sure, please write down the things I need, said Charlotte. No problem, just say it. The generator's set for a small hydropower station, 100 rifles, 100,000 rounds of ammunition, 10 sniper rifles. Wait, what do you need so many weapons and ammunition for? This is what the White Hun tribe wants. Without these weapons and ammunition, will they allow me to dig for treasures in their ancient ruins? All right, I'll give it to you. What else do you need? The tools for digging for treasures must be small, advanced, and it's best if I can operate it alone. In addition, prepare $2 million in cash and airdrop it to me. Ah! Boss, sure, don't worry. I'll pay for it. The Bureau doesn't need to pay for it. Then there's no problem. All right, I'll keep in touch. Charlotte hung up the phone. Serene was running towards him with an iron rod and a shovel in her hand. As she ran, her chest swayed back and forth, giving people the feeling that they might fall at any time due to the weight. They were filled with worry. I'm back, Serene shouted, holding the shovel high. A second later, her foot suddenly tripped on a stone, and then her whole body flew up and fell heavily to the ground. Her chest was the first part to hit the ground. Charlotte couldn't bear to watch and covered his eyes. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.